676. And if you don't have a computer and you're on your cell phone, the number you can dial is 1-646-558-8656. Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting.
Recording in progress.
At this time, if there is anyone here for citizens participation, please raise your hand and we will definitely call on you. Good evening. Do I see anybody with a raised hand? Okay, Mr. DeSoni. If you would unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Good evening, and unmuting myself is a miracle sometimes, but okay. How's everybody doing so far tonight?
Very well, thank you, Mark. We survived the storm.
I know the historical event of all, maybe God and Christ will be coming down to take it all back, hopefully. Okay, no, that has nothing to do with it. I wanted to ask you, Mr. Chairman, because I think you might be still on it, the Charter Committee. Are you still on it?
Yes, I am. Well, actually, we have been dissolved because the Charter Review has completed its mission and it was voted on a while back, about a year and a half ago.
And was there any major changes within the last year and a half to 30 years back of how the town is and how the town is now?
I think there were some changes that were made. I mean, I can't give you them directly. You can definitely go on the website. You'll see the corrections that were made, the changes that were made to the current charter.
Yeah, because I'm asking that because the trying to set this town downtown and future of the direction where it can go. Maybe the charter can update itself a little bit more and work together with the bylaws and zoning codes and everything else that goes with getting economic growth. Maybe the charter can work with that.
Well, that's a possibility, Mark. I know that seeing that the charter was done, the committee was in charge to do that. It took 5 years to get that done. And I would submit to you now that we're probably ready to do another charter review sooner than later.
Okay, now sooner than later, are you going to have, let's say sooner, but not much later? Will there be a round table, or are you going to be using town and select committees? You know, can citizens be involved in it?
Well, that's what it was last time. We had a lot of citizens involved. Citizens and other board committee members as well. It was a group effort. It wasn't just one particular individual group.
Okay, because I want to try maybe verbally and virtually, as you see me now in front, put my resume out there saying I would like to get involved in that just to help the town go forward whenever it does react again.
Well, I think when the time comes, Mark, I'm sure that an announcement will be made. I would like to see that you fill out a talent bank form, and when that comes available, you'll have a form indicating that you'll be interested in becoming part of that group.
Okay, and to the town manager and town hall, and to the technical side of things, the new town website, magnifique. It's great. It's very updated, and it has all the information up to the Britney's financial to the area. You have the area Ashland people. It's now more up to date than what the town old website is, and is more readable and easy and user friendly.
Well, thanks, Mark. We haven't, I'm glad you feel that way. We haven't made some dramatic changes, but we did make a few tweaks recently, and we'll actually be making some more tweaks coming up. And hopefully it'll be even more impressive for you.
Yeah, because what I see when I go to the official website, it shows the calendar, and on the right side it shows the meeting's day and the day, and it says read more and stuff like that. And that's where I'm getting my news on. That's what hopefully the town people, if they want to get information, go to the official website and then just react on that and read more from there. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anyone else that would like to be part of the citizens' participation? If not, then I would continue moving on with scheduled hearings and appearances. And our next scheduled hearing or appearance is at 7:10, which is right on the dot. Brittany Capone with the presentation of Distinguished Budget Award for FY 2022.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I alerted you last week, we were lucky enough again this year and fortunate enough to be recognized by the Government Finance Officers Association and in receiving the Distinguished Budget Award for our FY22 budget document. Now, the Gfoa Distinguished Budget Award is what that does is it has a whole list of requirements which were included in your packet that have to be met. And really, it focuses on making sure that the budget document is a policy document. It's a financial plan. It's an operations guide, and it's also a communications device. And Brittany, as our finance director, has taken, our budget document from, essentially line items and maybe a couple of pages of text now to a 400-page document, which explains what the funds are, how they work, how they interact with each other, detailed line items, organizational charts, basically anything that you wanted to learn about municipal government from a policy standpoint is contained in that document. This is the fourth year in a row that we've received. And once again, I want to congratulate Brittany. Brittany was also recognized by the Gfoa as being the one responsible for developing this budget. So Brittany, congratulations. Congratulations to the town. And Brittany, I'll turn it over to you. I hope you have the plaque.
I do. It's
Okay.
sitting very nicely behind me, awaiting our 2021, you can see it, medallion. Unfortunately, it wasn't 4 in a row. We missed a year. I think 2020 got in the way of all of us. But still, we got 4 so far. And I'd love to take the credit for the entire document, but I'll continue to thank department heads for providing me with the information that I request. I know it's a lot every year. So thanks to all of them for providing me with everything that I need to get the document together.
Yeah, it's
the way you make your presentation, Brittany, to the department heads that make them want to give you all the information that that you ask.
I hope so. That's how I look at it too.
yeah, we'll go with that, right, Brittany?
Yeah. Yep.
I can tell you when she's asking me for the transmittal letter, like continuously, she's not asking. At some point, she's like, "You need to get it in." So,
well done as always, Bruce.
Great job, Brittany. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
yeah, I really want to underscore just how rare this is for communities to get, because it is a ton of work. And I see a lot of times people post that say we don't put out information, and it's been nice to hear tonight both Mark acknowledge the improvements in our website, and then also being the recipient of this award and having Brittany here to acknowledge the work that they've all done to help make our government as transparent as possible. I think what's even more remarkable about this is Brittany and Carol are essentially a 2-person department, 2 people. Not only do they serve as finance director, Brittany is also the town accountant, which has its own set of functions and its own section of accountability set out in state statute. So, we're really fortunate to have her and Carol and really all of our finance team here in working with the commitment that they do provide here to the town of Ashland. So.
Well, thank you, Michael. And again, thank you, Brittany, for all the hard work. We know it's not easy, and we greatly appreciate all your efforts. And I'm sure that many of the residents in town appreciate your efforts as well. So thank you
Thanks,
again.
Cal. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Brittany, and thank you
you.
to your staff.
Any other board members who have
Yes.
anything they would like to
Yeah,
say?
congratulations, Brittany.
Great.
Great work.
Thank you.
Thank Carol for us too.
Yes, absolutely. Thank
And
you
tell
all.
them next time, I think that plaque needs to be a little bigger. Wasn't quite big enough.
Especially the little medallions.
You have to put that up on a wall someplace
Yeah,
sooner
Brittany.
than later.
Yeah, Brittany, yeah. Look at the.
We'll make Michael do it.
For it.
All right.
Put it somewhere where everyone can see it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's good. Yeah.
Great idea. All right, our next hearing was actually not a hearing, but our next appearance is at 7:15. It's the ZBA Associate Member Appointment. Anton, I'm going to probably mispronounce your name, so I apologize in advance. Is it Tikamarov?
Close to Komarov.
Tikamarov, okay, not bad. Thank you. Good evening and welcome. And I know that John's here as the chair of the zoning board. So good evening, John. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you, Joe.
Would you like to give us a little background with the ZBA and the reason why you would think that Anton would be a great fit for your board?
Sure. I think, as you all probably know, since August, we have been functioning with 3 members and only 1 associate member. The bylaws allow up to 4 associate members. So we've really been shorthanded in the event of an absence of a member or due to illness or whatnot. For a hearing or even for a meeting for a quorum, we need 3 people. Anton had filled out a talent bank form and his qualifications are perfect, I would suggest, for the ZBA. He is a licensed attorney, works for a very well-known law firm in Boston, is interested in zoning issues, and I think his qualifications are absolutely perfect for the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I would welcome him, as would the other members of the board. We met with Anton virtually, and the entire board supported his candidacy, as it were.
Very good. Thank you. I would open it up to the board for discussion. Anyone have any questions for Anton, or would you like to have Anton give a little history about himself before we do that?
Sure, let's have him give an introduction.
Okay. Anton, if you would be so kind, please tell us about yourself.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, John. So my name's Anton Komarov. Like John said, I am an attorney. I specialize in commercial real estate here in Boston, though I do stuff kind of all over. I do a mix of kind of more generic acquisitions, dispositions, financing stuff, and something more appropriate here, which is I do a little bit of development work and kind of zoning work and stuff like that. I grew up in Massachusetts. I grew up in Acton, which is about 45 minutes away from here. I went to UMass for my undergrad. I came back here to Boston for law school. And then I've been kind of moving around a few years. I've always wanted to get involved in local government. It's always something that I've been very interested in. But just by virtue of at first being a student and then later on being kind of transitory, just as I was moving around and kind of growing in my career, I hadn't really settled down anywhere to justify that. So recently, my fiance and I moved to Ashland. We live on Oak Street. And so, yeah, right as soon as we settled, I submitted a talent bank form, hoping to get involved and, help out. And I figured the ZBA would be a good fit, just considering my real estate law experience.
Good. Anybody have any direct questions for Anton at this time?
Not really. I just chatted with him. He seems very well qualified and we're happy to have him volunteer for this. That's great. Thanks, Anton.
Thank you,
Rob.
Rob. Steve, you had your hand raised?
I just wanted to thank Anton for stepping up as well. And John, thank you for all your work as well. And, there's always some interesting projects that the ZBA gets involved in. So, but Anton, I thought the other interesting part of your talent bank form or your resume was your involvement with the Attorney General's office and the open meeting law division. So if you can speak to that just a little bit, you might be our check and balance.
We kind of need one.
So I spent a summer during law school working in the Division of Open Government, which is the Attorney General's department that, I'm sure you've seen one of these the violations that they send out where, if a quorum happens to talk in any situation, it's a violation. You get a letter and they tell you to redo your minutes or whatever.
We're very
So
familiar with them, Anton.
Yes, unfortunately.
I suspect I might have actually sent one. I may have drafted one for Ashland. I'm not certain about that because it was,
I'm gonna
I
have to
went
check
through.
right now.
You won't see my name because at that time I wasn't a licensed attorney, so I was practicing under someone else. But I haven't read the open meeting law in a couple of years, but I was fairly familiar with it at the time. And I'm pretty finicky about legal stuff, so that's something that I think I can be helpful with. And don't meet without a quorum, or don't meet with a quorum without public access, I guess.
Very good. I appreciate that explanation. So again, thank you and welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate your involvement, Anton, and we appreciate having younger folks getting involved.
Thank you.
Very much so. Young blood is always good to have. So, yes, Yolanda.
I just also want to say thank you for stepping up, and UMass, great place to do your undergraduate. So thank you. Thank you for stepping up. Welcome to Ashland, and I'm sure you and your fiance will enjoy the town, and you have a great person to work with in John and as part of the ZBA. So thanks for
Sure.
stepping up and good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Brenda.
So it's funny that you were talking about open meeting law because there's a item on our agenda later on of talking about open meeting law training, so we'll see you there at the end of February, I'm sure.
Can't wait.
28.
So I just wanted to add my thanks as well. I'm so glad that one of the first thoughts you had after moving to Ashland is wanting to get engaged and involved, and so we're lucky to have you, and the ZBA will hopefully be a really great fit for you, and welcome to Ashland.
Thank you.
Great.
Now I have to do the official stuff, Joe.
Yeah, I was ready to go. I was ready to
Okay.
ask for a motion, please.
I move that we appoint Anton Komarov as an associate member to the Zoning Board of Appeals with a term that will expire on August 31st, 2022.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second,
Okay, we got, Brandy grabbed you. She beat you to it.
Andy has it.
So all those in favor, voice please.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
Here I.
Kinsman, aye.
Magnani, aye. That's 5-0. Congratulations, Anton. And John, thank you for all your diligent work with the ZBA and everybody that's involved on your board. Thank you. We know it's not an easy task.
Thanks, everybody, for the kind words.
Thanks,
you,
John. Good to
everyone.
see you
Thanks,
again.
John. Good
Thanks,
seeing you.
everybody.
Bye, John.
Thanks, Anton.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Anton.
Thank you.
All right. Nice selection for sure. Our next agenda item, and well, we're right on time, is the Ashland Emergency Fund to discuss the home heating program and other assistance programs that are available. I asked for this to come on the agenda because there seems to be some confusion that some people don't realize that there are opportunities for assistance out there for our residents who need assistance in these types of programs. So I know that the emergency fund is heavily involved in this. So that's why I asked Roland to come and give us a brief update and where folks can turn to and how can they get in contact with the folks from the AEF. Roland, good evening, sir, and thank you for coming. You are muted, Roland. Unmute yourself, please. There you go.
Okay, it should be. I thought you did that, but okay. Glad to be here. Actually, John Trefethen, just so you know, is also on our board. Bill Gath said he was going to be here, but I don't see him right now. But basically, I wanted to come on and talk about, you know, the availability of assistance from the emergency fund. We don't have a specific heating program by itself. It's just that is one of the things that we support, though. If people are in need of heating assistance, we do provide that. We're actually in the past, you know, well, since COVID started, this town and the businesses, they've always been very generous, but since COVID started, they've been unbelievably generous. And the requests for assistance really haven't gone up in that time. So where we have a lot of funds that are available to assist people, we're just actually, you know, trying to reach out to more people so that, you know, we can provide more assistance to people. We know this year, you know, heating prices are going up. It's probably going to be a cold winter on top of that. You know, so you know, we're trying to get the word out as far as, you know, through Facebook, through the town pages, you know, any way that we can do it. But sometimes it takes, you know, a teacher noticing, you know, one of their students going out doesn't have a coat, or, you know, a lunch lady noticing that, you know, one of the students, you know, doesn't have enough food. You know, those are the little things that we want to get out and make people aware of, you know, so they can refer them to the emergency fund. Now, Joe, you asked about, you know, how to get in touch with us. You know, everything we do, as you probably know, goes through the Department of Human Services in the community center. They're the social workers there, Jennifer and Courtney. You know, they do all the vetting for us. And what they do, they get the personal information. The personal information about the person, the names and everything, they don't come to the emergency fund. That stays in with the social workers. Then basically, you know, Jennifer or Courtney will talk to our screening committee and basically give them an outline. You know, might be that, you know, there's a single mother with 2 school-age children and they're in this predicament. You know, so they give generalities, sorry, about the situation, and then, you know, how much assistance they need and things like that. And the board actually approves it or you know, disapproves it. It's very rare that they would not approve it, as long as they meet the eligibility requirements of, you know, being in the Ashland community. But you know, we want to make people more aware of it. We're trying to come up with new ways to let people know what's available. You know, it could be heating, it could be, you know, funeral expenses for, you know, unexpected situation. You know, sometimes people, you know, will lose their jobs and they don't have enough income to, you know, keep up with their rent or their mortgage. You know, there's been times when we've assisted with car payments so people can keep their car to go to a job. I mean, it varies from case to case. You know, sometimes we've assisted with, you know, parking and tolls and gas for, you know, somebody that has to go into Boston for, you know, chemo treatments or something like that. It's basically anytime somebody needs assistance financially, you know, we're there to help them. So we're just trying to encourage anybody that if they happen to see a situation that they refer those people to the emergency fund, through the Department of Human Services. They can either, suggest to the person that they go to the Human Services, or sometimes there's situations where the person that sees the issue will go to the Human Services and suggest they get in touch with the people. That's oftentimes a little tougher, but that has happened as well. So, does anybody have any questions or anything?
Steve has his hand raised, and I'll go on to any other board members. Go ahead, Steve.
So, well, first thing I was about to ask you to clarify what you do support, Roland, but you answered it perfectly by explaining that you will support pretty much anything that makes sense where there's a need. So thank you for that. How about public safety touches a lot of people in our community. Are they able to refer folks to the human services, and that seems to me a critical path.
Yes, we have been in touch with both the police department and the fire department and let them know, especially if there's a situation where there's a fire and people are, can't stay in their house. That just happened not too long ago, a month or two ago, I think the beginning of last month, maybe, where there was a situation where that happened. And we had to put people up in a hotel for several days. So they are aware. Sometimes I wish they were more aware, because every once in a while we hear of a situation where, they didn't know who to refer people to. And I know, like I said, we've been in touch with both departments. I'm not sure it always filters down to everybody within those departments, though.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Roland, and thanks for all your work, John, and the emergency fund.
Thank you.
Good, Rob.
Oh, sure. Hey, thanks, Roland, for coming here, and John, and you guys are volunteers, right? So you've got this really private contributions that you're overseeing, and you're assisted by some of the town staff in the terms of human services, right? That's pretty. And so, thanks for all the work that you do. My only, so that's really great. I just want to make sure, though, that in terms of the relationship with the town's human service and our local community action agencies for all the needs, that, and it's not necessarily you guys, but I would say the town human services need to make sure that they are accessing available funds, and you have a good relationship with South Middlesex Opportunity Council. I work in community action in Worcester, and there's an unprecedented amount of government and private funding available through community action agencies for a variety of reasons. So I just want to make sure it's not really so much on you guys, but hopefully the town is kind of helping you screen things and referring people to SMOC when they have the resources, so you can kind of preserve your resources for people who don't otherwise qualify, or that you can cut through the bureaucracy and do something quickly. But yes. I hope that they really have strong relationships with SMOC, because there's really an enormous amount of funding available for a variety of reasons, and hopefully. I haven't talked to anybody there in years, but for some time. But I would think that they should be very active in things like rent relief, and especially fuel assistance right now under the ARPA funding. There is just a lot of funding available. It can get very complicated with eligibility, but hopefully we're handling that appropriately. At this point, there should be, between you and SMOC and in the town, there shouldn't be anybody really going without heating assistance. And one of the things you might want to think about is spreading the word about available, government programs. And again, that's probably more for the town to do. And so I just wanted to make sure you're aware of all those resources. But yes, thanks for all your work.
It's a great point. The Department of Human Services, they do. it's a great place for somebody that needs assistance to go to, because they're sort of like a clearinghouse. They do refer
Yeah.
people to the Red Cross, SMOC, St. Vincent de Paul. So the emergency fund is just one of the possible places they could go to get assistance. So rather than have somebody that needs assistance have to do this research on their own
Right.
and then go
No,
to
that's
5
great.
different agencies or something, it works out great that the Ashland has these social workers on the within the town to look out for people, and point them in the right direction and collect the information that they know they're going to need.
That's
So
great.
yeah, again, we're just one of the components that they work with, but we have a great relationship with them, I think.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Rob, for the additional information, and we appreciate that. Are there any additional questions? Go ahead, Yolanda.
So Roland, I just want to add my thank you to the work that you do on behalf of the Ashland Emergency Fund. Same to you, John. If someone's watching, and I know this time of year is always a little more difficult, people have done their charitable giving in November and December around the holidays. If someone was still feeling charitable, how could they get funds to the Ashland Emergency Fund?
The easiest way would just be to send a check to the P.O. Box 112 in Ashland, Massachusetts, or 01721. But P.O. Box 112 is really the easiest way. There is an online way to do it through a website as well. If you go to the ashlandemergencyfund.org website, there's a section there for giving that has the link on there.
Okay, but it's ashlandemergencyfund.org.
That's correct.
Great.
But
thank
really,
you.
right now we're looking more to help people than to
get
receive
money.
donations.
Yeah. Okay.
We're all set with donations right now, but we want to help people, so
Okay.
we're trying to get the word out.
Great.
Great. Thank you. Great question. Go ahead, Brandy.
Thank you. Thank you, Roland. It's good to see you. One of the things that you had said kind of made me think. So you were saying how, maybe a teacher notices that a student doesn't have a coat, or, something, thinking in line of the schools, because the schools are really seeing a lot and are more privy to a lot of more information kind of on the front lines. Are the counselors at the schools plugged into our social workers at the community center? Like, are they getting referrals from the schools? Because I would think that would be a big thing.
Probably not as much as they should be. We're actually starting to work on that right now. We had a couple of some high school looking for volunteer opportunities. And that's one of the things we're trying to set up with them, is that they actually take the initiative to get in touch with their schools and, try to spread the word within their schools, and the workers, the employees within the school, not just the students, but the employees within the school system, that if they see something, then, refer them to the human services.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, Jen Cutler and Jennifer Wolfing are very tied in and plugged into each other, as well as our school resource officers. I think, as Roland said, we know there's these resources out there, and we hope everybody who can take advantage of them does take and needs to take advantage of them, does take advantage of them. But, we feel like we've got, that infrastructure, that reporting infrastructure in place. It can always be improved to help facilitate that when necessary.
I think that's
It's
great
good.
that it's there, though. I think that's an important connection. So, and then I just have one other question. So I know that the Ashland Emergency Fund was working with the food pantry for, especially during COVID when there was an increased need. Is that is still something that the Emergency Fund is still supporting, the needs of the food pantry?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we put in I think in 2021, I don't have the exact number offhand, but it was probably about $30,000 that we put into the food pantry through the Greater Boston Food Bank. Basically, what we do is, we put a chunk of money into the food bank for them to draw from, and then when it starts getting low, then we put another chunk in there. So basically, they buy I think they buy about 2 tons of food every other week, I think it is. There's a lot. I mean, the food pantry gets a lot of donations during food drives and things like that, but there's still a lot of things, especially fresh produce, chicken, frozen food, things like that you don't get through food drives, and those are usually non-perishable items. We also have replaced a number of refrigerators and freezers in the last few months. We did that back in the fall, and then last month we actually just purchased another freezer and refrigerator as well. And I think they're going to buy some shopping carts and things like that. They're going to be doing that in the next month or so.
Thank you so much. That's
Go ahead,
good.
Yolanda, you had your hand raised. Go ahead.
Roland, it might be beneficial. I know Joe invited you to be here tonight. I'm wondering if you do a similar presentation, reach out to Lori Tosti, the current chair of the school committee, because there might be people who need the services but aren't watching a select board meeting, but might watch a school committee meeting to go, oh, that could be helpful to me. So just an idea.
Good idea. Thank you.
Couple more, get yourself out in front of another group of people.
Good idea.
I foresee a TV show in the near future.
I do too.
And we have done that in the past as well.
We have.
But if they don't read that, what we're finding is that there are, believe it or not, people that don't watch WACA, that don't watch these, don't participate in these Zoom meetings, don't read the town pages, aren't on any of the Ashland Facebook groups,
Yep.
Things like that. Those are the ones we're trying to reach. And, but if they're not on any of the mediums that we use right now, we're trying to find new ways to reach those people.
Have you done a story on local pages?
We have. We've
Okay.
done every, at least once or twice a year, we do one of those.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you, Roland, for being here this evening. I appreciate you accepting our invitation. I thought it was important to get that discussion out, make people aware of what's going on. And, during difficult times, we're all in the same boat. And it's okay to ask for assistance.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with asking for assistance. And that's why you folks are here. That's why all the other social programs that we have throughout the town, be it through churches or other agencies in town via the state, that's what they're there for. And
Absolutely.
we greatly appreciate everybody that needs assistance to get the assistance that they need. Nobody should go without in this community, especially during
Correct.
this time.
No need for it.
No, there is no need for it at all. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you folks are doing. John, again, thank you for your efforts as well. Bill could not be here. He just texted me. He wanted to be here. He got tied up on something, but he apologizes. But he appreciates everything that the AEF does. And we look forward to seeing you all again soon. And hopefully the word gets out there to everybody. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roland. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you again. Okay, moving along, just a few minutes behind, but that's okay. I thought that was important enough to add additional time. At 7:35, we were to have a discussion with, where's my chef? I know he's here someplace.
There he is.
There he is, Chef Alan McIntosh. How are you?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm good, thank you. I do have to preface this. This is a request for a BYOB alcohol license, bring your own bottle, for Sunday, February 13th and Monday, February 14th. Now, the reason why this wasn't posted on the agenda earlier, this just came in today. Our next meeting is on the 16th, so the request would have been, we've been unable to do so because the 2 dates would have been gone. So I'll take full responsibility if an OML comes our way. But I thought this was important enough. We are business friendly, and I wanted to make sure that we assist those that are looking for assistance in promoting and doing something that's a nice gesture. So, Alan, if you don't mind, you want to give us a background as to what you're doing and what you're holding on those 2 nights.
I'm doing something a little different than what we normally do. Where normally we do traditional Japanese food and ramen. Those 2 nights we're doing a prefix dinner for Valentine's Day. It's a special type of prefix menu called kaiseki. It's usually accompanied by a tea ceremony in Japan, but we're doing it as a multi-course, 5-course dinner on those nights, and on those 2 nights we're doing 3 seatings each. And it was a very last afterthought about the having beer and wine, and a lot of people really, especially on Valentine's Day, want to enjoy wine with their dinner. So we put in the request. I reached out to Susan, but I've also been in discussion with her, and I'm going to be submitting an actual application for another beer and wine license. At the start of COVID, I let the one that we had expire because we weren't doing dine-in or anything, so it wasn't worth it at that point. But now that things are returning to normal, we're looking to redo the beer and wine license.
Thank you. Any questions from any of the board members? I don't see any.
No, I'll just comment, Joe, on the application. It seems pretty self-explanatory. It certainly fits within our policies, the policies we established. Brandy, this was before your time. Rob, I'm not sure if you were on the board in 2015, but we established new, we actually condensed and revised and expanded our alcohol policies at that point in time. And BYOB is very much part of our alcohol policies.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Yolanda.
I was also going to say it's a pretty straightforward application, and I'm glad we were able to add it to the agenda, even though it was not within the 48 hours. So I think, as you said, supporting a business that is trying to be inventive and keep themselves active in the community, the more we can do to support that, the better.
I don't disagree. So I'll take full responsibility if it comes down the pike. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, so Alan, what's that? Is the name of the Doragon Collective? Is that what's behind you there on the screen?
My main company name, which all of my businesses fall under, is Doragon Collective.
Oh, and what does that refer to? Is this a collective business or?
So under Doragon Collective, I have Doragon Ramen, we have Doragon Tea,
I see.
Doragon Provisions, and I also have the Art of Umami, which is away from the Doragon name, but they're all under that same company.
Okay, but you're the owner
Yes.
of all those. Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, I don't have any questions about this application.
Okay, well, at
If you
this
haven't
point,
been to Doragon Provisions, you got to go.
Okay.
My only question is, Alan, are you doing takeout for that wonderful menu that night? You're not. Dine-in only, huh?
It's a very technical, intense menu, so it's putting it out, and it's all of the courses are going to come up at the same time for everybody in the dining room. So it's all of the seating start promptly at a certain time. So we're not doing any takeout that night at all. We're just focusing on this menu, which is something really different for me. Like this is the first like real chef's dinner that I'm doing, and it's something that's really unique out here in Metro West anyway.
nice.
Well, I think it's fantastic, and I'm happy to help support you however we can. So
Thank you.
Okay, so if we're all ready to support
Yep.
Alan's initiative, I would at this time entertain a motion.
I move that we approve a 2-day bring your own bottle license to Doragon Collection Inc., DBA Doragon Ramen for Sunday, February 13th and Monday, February 14th from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. in support of their special Valentine's event.
Just a little qualification, I would say beer and wine, not just
Yes.
bottle.
Yeah.
Bottle can mean anything.
Very good. Thank you. Good point.
And I will second that, the inclusion of beer and wine.
So very good. So a voice vote, please.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
Here, I.
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. That would be 5-0. Alan, you got your BYOB beer and wine license for those 2 nights. Good luck, and make sure you get your license in for beer and wine license for the new year to come.
Yes.
Thank you
And good
so
luck. I
much.
hope it's a success.
Yeah, good
I hope
luck.
so too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan,
Thanks, Alan.
Sounds like a great 2 nights.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
so I guess
saw
we
the
were
menu.
lucky.
That was a
I
great
guess we were
menu.
lucky- It does.
Mm.
I guess we were lucky Anton left the meeting before we went forward with the with this agenda item.
I won't get
Yeah,
any
but-
sleep.
No, I think we're all right.
We're
I
good.
was going to say, this is definitely the kind of thing where, if something needs to be added last minute, this is the type of thing you want to add last minute.
I don't disagree.
Absolutely.
And if someone questions that, shame on them.
Well, it is there. I believe it gives boards the ability for time-sensitive issues
Right,
to
Exactly.
modify the agenda. So, this
Right.
is certainly time-sensitive. And
Yep.
Joe, it's not all on you. We're a team, by the way.
Exactly.
Okay, well, the good Lord gave me broad shoulders, so I'd be willing to take one for the team. But you're right, we are a team. You've been a very good team too. All right. So far, so good. Old new business. Open up the warrant, which is tonight.
It's,
Am I right, Mr.
it-
Town Manager?
you were right. It is that time of year again. Same as it ever was. We're now at the point here in February where we're looking at opening up the annual town meeting for the first Wednesday in May, which this year is May 4th. So I don't know if you've had an opportunity to review the articles in your packet or the warrant guidance that Jen provided in your packet, but we have February 2nd tonight as the date to open the warrant. And the deadline for notice of intent to submit proposed warrant articles is on March 4th. We've identified April 6th as being the date for the select board to vote to close and post the warrant. And then again, annual town meeting would be on May 4th. So we're starting the process of collecting warrant articles that we're aware of, at least at this point in time. And we have our standard warrant articles that you typically expect to find on the annual town meeting. This year, we also have inclusionary zoning that we know will be on there, and we could potentially see a couple more.
Sounds good. Any
So-
questions from any other members?
I did want to, well, one of the things just to point out, we can go as late as the 26th if we choose to, correct? And just to revise, if we, or just to review, I think if we put something on April 6th, we can still get, there can still be changes to the language to the warrant articles until a certain time, or how does that work?
So there's 2 actions the board will need to take after opening the warrant. First one is a vote to close the warrant, and then the next vote is to post the warrant. Now, the board has the opportunity, even after closing the warrant, to reopen it again and insert new warrant articles if they so choose. But once that the board takes a vote to post the warrant, then they can no longer add new articles. In terms of language changes, it follows very similar guidance. I think if there's very small Scrivener's errors, we can make those changes. But typically, if something like that happens, we try to address it through the motion. And really that just comes up on a case-to-case basis, and we work with town council on resolving that. Did that answer your question, Rob?
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, just we might have some complex, like inclusionary zoning or other ones. Just as an FYI, I guess I'll do this under board reports, but I met with the Sustainability Committee about their possible warrant article on net zero. So I can talk about it then rather than hear people like they wanted some feedback on some thoughts they're having about it. So
perfect. And so with that, I would just ask the board to vote to open the warrant.
Do we need a motion?
I
Yes.
move that we open the warrant for town meeting 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, voice vote, please.
Reeves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
here
Kinsman, I.
Vignani, aye. That would make it 5-0. Okay, so the town warrant is now officially open. So for committees and groups that would like warrant articles to be on the May town meeting, this is your opportunity to get things started. So thank you. Thank you, Michael, for the clarifications, and Rob, thank you for speaking with the Sustainability Committee as well. So we're good. Okay. This is a reminder.
Yep.
I can do this real quick. If you want, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's as you started, just to remind everyone that we're going to have an open meeting law training and a public records request and ethics training on February 28th, which is a Monday at 7 p.m. We're going to be doing that virtually. Town Council Lisa Mead will be leading us through that. Susan has issued a save the date notice to all boards and committee members, not just the chairs. We haven't asked for an RSVP list yet, but we will start looking at getting registrants and start getting an idea of who and how many will be attending.
Good.
So
far, so good.
So far, so good. Can we just keep going, Joe?
Go right ahead, Michael. You're on a roll.
Well, before you, I think you're going to start inclusionary zoning. Is that right? So that's kind of a long. Before we, well, I'm thinking it might be a long discussion, but before we get to there, Mr. Chair, were you going to say anything about the planning board?
Well, I was going to bring it up during my report.
Okay, that's fine.
If you
I just wanted to
wanna...
make sure we didn't forget about it. That's
no,
great.
I haven't forgotten. I've got it listed right here on a sticky note right in front of my screen.
There you go. All right. Very good.
And it also says, keep Rob happy.
Uh-oh. Yeah. All right. Sorry for the interruption.
No, not a
Carry on.
problem. Go right ahead. Okay. Discuss the inclusionary zoning and affordable housing draft that's being worked on.
Yeah, I'll probably turn this over to Brandy in a bit.
Yeah.
Just, I did provide in your packet the survey flyer, and we'd encourage everybody to take that survey if you can. Inclusionary zoning, just as a broad definition, it requires builders / developers to include an affordable component in developments that they are looking at building here in town. Again, that's just a general broad definition of it. But Brandy, you've been working on it along with the housing production plan. And so you can probably provide some more insight and some thought into this and where we're headed.
Sure. I had actually asked to put this as a line item on our agenda tonight because I know I've been giving board reports and little updates, but I think it's, we're asking for the public's input on this survey that Michael spoke about. And I think it's important for us to kind of give sort of broader context and more information to the public of what this really is, what we're really asking people to do, and why we're doing this. So we go back to fall 2020, when the steering committee started working on our housing production plan that was certified last year, one of the top goals, so the housing production plan in general was to set housing goals for Ashland for the next 5 years. And one of the top goals that emerged from the housing production plan is to create an inclusionary zoning bylaw. And as Michael said, it really would require all development in Ashland to have an affordable housing component. And so, we don't have a town-wide bylaw that does that right now. And over 100 towns and cities in Massachusetts have adopted inclusionary zoning as a way to increase their housing stock. We like to, when we have development that's coming to Ashland, we've done a really good job, I think, in advocating for affordable housing, where we have leverage or ways to negotiate. We've done a great job of increasing our affordable housing, increasing our subsidized housing inventory, which is the level that the percentage of affordable housing to our whole housing stock. So the state, as we've talked about before, has mandated that towns have 10% affordable housing. So this is something that we've been trying to increase over the years. We've done a really good job at it. And an inclusionary zoning bylaw kind of is one more tool to help us get there. And we'd like to think that developers would want to, give us affordable housing out of the goodness of their heart. But that doesn't always quite happen. So when you create an inclusionary zoning bylaw, there has to be some offsets. So incentives for developers to want to do the project. So those types of incentives are, generally speaking, decreasing parking requirements or increasing the number of units that a developer can have for a project. And when we talk about affordable units, we're not just talking about rentals, we're also talking about owner occupied as well. So I know we tend to think of affordable housing in larger apartment complexes, but that's not necessarily what this all includes. So, when we talk about this particular survey and what we're crafting this bylaw to represent what we as a community will feel is acceptable for those offsets and trade-offs. So the survey that we've put out there really, it lays out the need in Ashland. In fact, if you go to our town's website and you go under the latest news and click on the link for the survey, MAPC, who's our partner in this, has really put together a great website. They call it a story map. It has information in there about the housing production plan, what the housing need is. We talk a lot about AMI, which is average mean income. And so when we talk about affordability, we talk about that as a percentage. So AMI as a percentage. And so the three options that we're really looking at in this bylaw, one option is to maximize the number of units at a lower AMI or at 80% AMI. So say a 15% affordability component at 80% AMI would give us would make us have greatest progress towards our SHI, our state numbers. Or the second option is to go to create deeper affordability at 60% AMI, and it would be a 10% units at 60% AMI. The trade-off for that would be greater because it costs more to offer deeper affordability. So instead of a moderate decrease in parking or a moderate amount of units increased, it would be both a greater reduction in parking and a greater amount of units. And the third option that we were looking at is sort of a hybrid. So it would be a 15% affordability at a mix of 80% AMI and 60% AMI. So we're asking folks to think about it. think about what their real goals are around affordability and affordable housing. And, you know, we're looking at crafting this bylaw and getting the public's input because we want to be able to, you know, increase our housing stock, our affordability housing stock, and make progress towards our SHI. But more than that, I think we recognize that affordable housing is such a huge need. You know, when we talk about what percentage of Ashland households are eligible for deed restricted affordable housing, so legally deed restricted affordable housing, it's 29% of our households in Ashland. And the income levels I have here, so at an 80% AMI, a one-person household would make $70,000 and a four-person household would be at $100,000. And those folks would be eligible for deed restricted housing. And when you look at 60% AMI, for a one-person household, it's $56,000. And for a four-person household, it's $80,000. So we're not talking low-income housing here. We're talking workforce housing. So we're talking, you know, teachers and police officers and firefighters, those folks who want to both live and work in our community. So we're really creating more housing for our workforce. So I would encourage folks to go on the town's website and complete the survey. I was at the Affordable Housing Trust, so Joe's heard this before. He's heard this last week. But one of the things that I wanted to have discussion about tonight was, you know, from our perspective, we've been really trying to negotiate the highest amount of affordability, like the highest percentage of affordable housing in developments that we have control over or we have input on. Because as we know, if a development will allow 25% affordable, all those units count towards our SHI. So from a perspective, like, you know, I'm curious if these three options that we have in our survey, what resonates most with the board, what resonates most with the community, but I'm interested in input from everyone here just to see where your thoughts are as far as how we craft this bylaw. So that's long-winded, but that's about it.
I appreciate that, Brandy. Thank you. You know, one of the concerns that we have, and when I say we, I talk about the Affordable Housing Trust. You mentioned it in your discussion. We're creating a workforce housing list of places where people can live in town. We need to take that a step further as well, because there are retirees that want to live in town that can't afford their homes anymore, and they're looking to find properties or even new developments that are actually affordable, low income, as we discussed, low income. And because we're in a group with AMIs from Cambridge, Brookline, Boston, Wellesley, that knocks our AMI up quite substantially. And that definitely affects the lower end of the salary mean for those folks that don't and can't afford the current rates for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. And that's what we need to start focusing on. And I don't know, and we've had this discussion before with the Housing Authority Trust, what mechanism we can use or what's available out there via funding wise, unless we do what Sudbury has done. And Sudbury has taken it on their own to build their own and manage it and do it themselves. And I don't know if that's something the town would like to entertain doing that down the road. I just see Michael's face just distorted a little bit.
No, I was actually thinking more of Robert Hill Way And even though it's not necessarily town managed, it was certainly an initiative of the town, and fills a lot of that role that we're talking about, that deeper subsidy level.
Mhm.
Not the units there are not 80% affordable. They're at the 50, 60. There might be some at the 30% income level. So it's
how do,
certainly something that we can do, that we've done before.
well, that would be great. And I think that discussion needs to be resurrected in some way, shape or form. Go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, ask Brandy a question and then comment on your comments, Joe. Brandy, is there a minimum size project that this bylaw would impact?
The short answer is it will, but it hasn't been decided yet. So it's
Okay.
it's
So
probably
that's still open.
Yeah, it will be. My sense is that it's large enough. When I say large, I'm thinking like maybe 10 units or something like that. I don't know if that's going to be what number that it ends up being, but we're not talking necessarily truly large scale. It doesn't have to be a large scale project to have an affordable housing component.
Okay, that sounds like a discussion a little bit further down the road. That's fine. I tend to agree with Joe in terms of how I perceive the need for affordable housing in town, and it tends to be on the what we did with UGC and getting that lower threshold AMI. So I think for me, there's a bigger need in that range. And then I guess I have a question about our affordable housing goals in general. It seems to me, Michael, what is our percentage right now?
I believe we're up to 8%.
So we're
with the
we're
UGC
chasing,
project.
right? So we're chasing the magic number 10. And what happens when we hit 10%? Do we stop there and we say that is sufficient in terms of our housing stock needs? Or, so how does this all tie in once we do hit that number? Or do we just continue to promote affordability as just a ongoing part of our goals and agenda? So I don't expect an answer for that. That's, just something to ponder.
I can certainly provide some initial thoughts, because I've put a lot of thought into this. And, I think the only way that we're going to hit that 10% figure is the way some of our surrounding communities have, like Sudbury, Hopkinton, I think Sherburne's Sherburne's not close yet. Weston, Wayland, is to use that multifamily option, or that multifamily, and I'll just call it a loophole, that says that if you have 25% of your units deemed affordable under DHCD criteria, you get to count all 100% of the units towards your subsidized housing inventory. So once we accomplish that 10% number, then I think we can start talking about some of the things that we've talked about in terms of, okay, well, what do we need to address in terms of the need out there? Does it need to be deeper subsidy? Does it need to be ownership units? I still think accessory dwelling units are a critical component to affordable housing, especially for seniors. It gives us, I think we're trying to achieve that safe harbor status, which in turn will give us the flexibility to look at a whole bunch of different options and a whole lot of different needs in terms of affordable housing.
Yep.
Don't disagree,
Fair
Michael.
enough, I think.
Go ahead, Steve.
I was
I'm
just
sorry.
finishing up. Yeah, just, fair enough. I think, that's going to be a good discussion. And I agree. I think once we have that flexibility, I think there's a lot of things, and particularly when you start to look at some of the activities and projects that have been done with CPA money relative to affordable housing. There's a lot more options and things that we've never even talked about at this point in time, unfortunately. But I think there's a lot of things that it opens up a whole lot of options.
Hey, Brenda.
So just to kind of build on that too, when I was at the Affordable Housing Trust meeting last week, we talked about, you know, that it might be a really good idea for the Affordable Housing Trust, for the Select Board, for the Planning Board, for the Zoning Board of Appeals to come together and talk about what, you know, like I'm relatively new to this. I would love to see, you know, to hear from the trust, like what their priorities are, what their funding mechanisms are. There's a lot more new people like on the planning board that I think could benefit from that too. Because I think if we all have that same kind of understanding of what we're working towards, and I don't disagree, Michael, that we need to get towards that 10%. I just feel like that is, you know, I think that's just a very, I don't want to call it a superficial number, but it really kind of is a superficial number, because it really doesn't address real affordable housing in the community. And so I think we can have both discussions. I think we can do things like inclusionary zoning to increase the number of affordable units, but I think to the point of like, how do we address some of these other issues? I think we can do that too. And I think the best way to do that is together, so we're all aligned. So, you know, if that's something that the board would support, I'm happy to try to put something together some point in the next couple months and see if we can start that discussion.
Great, Yolanda.
So, Brandy, I want to thank you for doing the work that you've been working on. I remember when my first years on the board, when I made sure we had our first housing production plan and worked with Joe and talked to the affordable housing people and looked at a lot of different things. And these are all things that as a community we've been talking about for a long time. But to your point, we have a lot of new people sitting in positions that might not understand all the tools available to us. I support the inclusionary zoning. I think we definitely need to have that discussion, make sure that what we put into that, and I don't think we're working from scratch. There's a lot of other communities that have inclusionary zoning bylaws already that we should be working with, and I know MAPC can help us with that. To your point, Michael, I agree. Accessory dwelling units, I think with seniors wanting to stay in our community, wanting to maybe be able to say, okay, I'm a senior, I live in this large colonial, but I want to stay in the community, but I want to be able to sell this to my kids, and I want to be able to then have an in-law apartment. I think we need to have that discussion because we don't want to see more new houses being built. We don't, we're trying to keep our open space and trying to restrict building, but you can't restrict building. But if you can add that accessory dwelling unit to some of our parcels, it would help seniors stay in the community and allow their kids to potentially move back into the community that they've grown up with if they want to do that. So I would work with you, Brandy, to help facilitate that meeting between ourselves and affordable housing and the planning board and ZBA, anyone who can be part of this discussion, and certainly let the public be aware, because I think for a lot of people, they hear low income housing or affordable housing, and they think it's for the very poor people. And we need to show that that's not the case, that there are many people within a wide range of income levels up to a certain point with the information that you gave us, that it would be good that they could have housing within our community. What does that look like? What does that mean? So all good stuff. It's just a matter of getting the information out to the public for the discussion.
Go ahead, Rob.
Sure, thanks. I agree that I think a joint meeting would be good, and also the accessory dwelling. And I think though I'm just wondering with the inclusionary housing, if we're really, if that should be our first priority. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the history of Ashland, and to your point, Yolanda, we've been working on housing production for several years now, and it's really been a priority, and we put it in place. We have not done the priority with open space. We've not looked at our community inventory and our build out analysis to look at other areas that we may want to do other things than with housing. And so my concern is, and I talked to Brandy about this. So this inclusionary zoning is a great thing. Can we specify the areas to which it would apply? Because we are giving developers incentives to build a lot of units. And so I think we may end up with them building in places that we wouldn't want them to, or that we would prefer be used for other purposes. We haven't so we don't have those, I think, safeguards in place. And to, some of the other points made in the MAPC program, they talked about the greatest needs of very low income and senior citizens. And so, maybe that's what we should be focusing on. We've got safe harbor right now. And maybe there's other things we should do. For example, we have the Simpson property, which was, to my understanding, bought by town meeting several years ago, specifically for affordable housing. And Joe, to go to your point, and I think Steve's, that we could build targeted housing there. I wasn't so thrilled with Robert Hill Way because I thought it was a bad location, but I would support this one because town meeting, my recollection specifically wanted it done. So I'm just wondering if we should look at these targeted needs. I mean, I think if you look at the history of Ashland, it's the history of housing growth. So we have built a lot of market rate housing and actually a diversity of housing. The single family homes, lately they've been too big and expensive, but we've built, certain developers have built a lot of condominiums with their more moderately priced owner occupied. So we're not quite like all the other communities around here that have not built housing. The history of Ashland is the history of building market rate housing. That's what we're all about. We probably had, 10, 20% growth in housing units in the last several years. So one thing to give developers more incentives to build housing everywhere through town is, I think you're going to get, I know I have some reservations. I think you will find a lot of the residents have reservations about that. And I think it would do better to be more targeted to the main priorities that MAPC put out, which was very low income and senior housing. That's where we're lacking. And, I think we have some land we already own. We also have access to government funding and incentives we can get. So I think we should look at, and there's the whole question of the status of the Ashland Housing Authority and what condition that's in. We've talked about that. I think we should take on some of these targeted projects rather than, unless we can modify this inclusionary zoning to, be part of a plan of places where we want housing built, I would have, issues with. So that would be my kind of thinking on that, as we kind of look at what we should target for priorities over the next few years and get those done with resources which we, have available to us now. So that would be my thinking on that.
Just to piggyback what you just said, Rob, with the property down off of Olive Street. I can tell you that 5 to 6 years ago, the Affordable Housing Trust had a project that we wanted to put up there. And, we sent out RFPs, and the unfortunate thing is nobody returned. No builder wanted to build. The bottom line was they weren't making the money that they would have made out in the general field of construction. So there were certain things that we needed to have done and followed the guidelines. But that doesn't mean we're giving up. There are other groups that are available. Habitat for Humanity, we're in conversation with them about utilizing some of that property to build some, lower income housing for not only just elderly, but also for, families that were looking for, a duplex type style home. So, these discussions are happening and they're ongoing. I think one of the things that we need to address when we talk about, alternatives, and one of the alternatives would be in-law suites. What initiative do we give the homeowner for building it? Do we give tax credit? Do we do, something to give them an initiative to want to build on there? not just to help their family, but, you know, to help them as well. You're still going to have that home there. You're still going to collect taxes, but how about an incentive? So if they do put an in-law in, there's some sort of incentive to, you know, minimize the tax increase on that specific unit. I mean, so there can be creative ways of doing things. We just have to all be working on the same page to make sure that, you know, one, we're not selling the town short, and two, we're doing what we wanted to do, and that's create affordability for all age groups and not just a workforce group, which is currently what's happening right now. So it's a big task, and it can get done. It just, people have to be a little bit more creative. Michael, I know you had your hand raised. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to address a couple of comments. First, I think, you know, Brandy, you know, you referenced that 10% number as being almost a superficial number, and I don't disagree with you, but I think the whole point about this is local control. We're talking about things that we want to do, and unless we have control over our own zoning, we don't have the ability to do that. We're still going to be, shouldn't say we won't have the ability to do that. We're going to be subject to others imposing their will upon us and what they want to do. And I think we have to remember, you know, when Ashland property values got to the point where multifamily housing was an attractive thing for developers, you had the recession of 2008, 2009. Then it started rebounding. Ashland property values got to a point where that became attractive. Then you started seeing things like Ashland Woods, 60 units, which I thought was done fairly well. But then we also had the Valentine property. And I mean, we had to spend $3.5 million to get out from under that. And actually then that was when we started taking control of our own destiny and saying, okay, this safe harbor thing is for real and something that we should concentrate on. And we were able to achieve that through Robert Hill Way. We were able to achieve that for a little bit, believe it or not, with the Valentine property. And then we've been able to do that with UGC. So I don't want to dismiss it because that 10% number, because it's really critical, I think, to the overall plans. And the other thing, Rob, I'm with you 100% on saving as much open space as possible. I feel like we have done a lot. We've saved over 300 acres or preserved them through purchases, deed restrictions, and other methods. And that's the largest preservation effort since the town forest with Henry Warren. I don't want to say we should rest on our laurels, but I think we do. I think it is important that we acknowledge that. And then the other thing is, when we're looking at some of these properties, I'm wondering what kind of analysis was done with the infrastructure. So when we talk about Olive Street only got sewer after we were, that the property was bought. So, I'm sure there's the ability to do septic there, but I'm not sure how much limitation there is. But I mean, just look at Olive Street. I mean, don't look at the condition, but I mean, Olive Street is not very, I'm not sure how much traffic it can handle on a regular basis. So, I'm not aware of the analysis that went into that. I'd be happy to look into it, but I think
that's a good point. We should decide if that's a realistic place, and maybe it's a place where you have a relatively small number of units to get it.
Right.
And there's some open space there, something that fits, good point.
It was also bought with open space money too. We've got a number of properties that have that complexity.
Yeah.
Good, Steve.
So just a couple of comments for Rob. And I agree. I think, certainly to target some of these properties that have laid fallow for so many years. The Simpson property, Olive Street property was bought in 2007, I believe. And it's, again, I know Joe and the trust have been working to try to jumpstart a project. And I agree. I think to start to utilize some of these properties for targeted purposes, 100% in agreement. That still doesn't answer the issue of private ownership and the ability for private owners to develop their property. And I think that's an important component that we need to recognize with the inclusionary zoning. That doesn't go away. I think you have to do both. And then thirdly, I would say relative to open space, one of the things I've been harping on for a while is the open space and recreation plan. Now, we were told that we didn't have one. We determined that we do have one. I think if we're going to meet with another committee, I think it's the Open Space and Recreation Committee we should be meeting in, and get an explanation as to what happened with the plan, where it is today, what are the priority projects or properties that they have that is part of that plan. And then we can have an intelligent discussion about housing and where it goes. But, I think we need to have that discussion. We need to have that group in front of us. I diverted here, I'm sorry, Brandy, but, to me, this kind of ties together. It doesn't directly with inclusionary zoning, but, to me, it all ties together.
And I think just to follow up, sorry, Brandy, I think, Steve, that's a good point, but to me, it means that, yeah, we should get our act together in other areas before we kind of do this whole town zoning, where we could be, fighting against ourselves with a developer who wants to develop land we'd rather acquire for open space, and now he's got more incentives than he did before. So that would be my concern, that we haven't done that build out analysis. We haven't reviewed the open space plan. We haven't preserved what we want to preserve before we take this step. That's, I guess, my concern.
Yeah, fair enough.
So-
Thank you.
So just the one thing I want to just talk about, because what you said, Rob, it makes sense. Like, we don't want to necessarily build on open space. Obviously, we want to preserve as much open space as possible. But the incentives that we're talking about, the trade-offs, they're not going to incentivize a builder to want to build if they're not already planning to build on that land. It's literally just basically it's a cost offset for increasing the amount of affordable housing. So it's not like, for instance, at 501 Pond Street, I was listening to the first meeting, the hearing, and Trask Development, the builder, is saying that it's 120 units at 25% affordable, and there was an increase in units because he's doing 25% affordable. So there is that trade-off there. But for private property, our options are either to purchase property, or the owner of that private property can sell it or develop it according to zoning. And I don't think that this is going to either incentivize or disincentivize someone from doing that. So, and just also to be clear, inclusionary zoning isn't something that we can cherry pick, and it's meant to be townwide, because it's just meant for literally to make sure that we include affordable housing in all development that we do.
Yeah, I guess so thank you for that, because that's interesting that it wouldn't add additional incentives. I would like to be sure of that. But I'm not sure why we wouldn't be able, why it has to be the whole town. But that's some kind of constitutional rule that someone made up. I don't get that, but thank you for that. I'll just have to consider that.
All right, Rob, thank you. Brandy, thank you. Are there any additional comments you'd like to make, or are we good? I'm sure we will be discussing this in later meetings. And
the only thing I would add is that the survey is going to be out for about another 2 weeks. If folks can go up on our website and click on the link under the quick links, the latest news, and take the survey, participate. feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if you have concerns about things. I'm happy to talk to anyone that wants more information on this. And then the steering committee is going to meet to discuss the feedback from the survey, craft the bylaw, and then this will be, the plan is for this to go in front of the planning board for a hearing prior to town meeting. So that is, that's sort of the timeline. And then we want the public to be at town meeting in May to hear about this and potentially vote on an inclusionary zoning bylaw. So thanks.
Brandy, one last thing. Can I just this thought? One of the things this does is produce more affordable units by producing more market rate units, and you have to increase the number of market rate units to get the affordable units. So I think that's a key trade-off, because I'm not sure that we need to build more and more housing units. That goes back to my point that you could certainly go to some communities and say, oh, we need more housing, but how much housing should Ashland be building? We have built a lot of housing, and I think you'll see that. You'll see people throughout the town reflect that feeling. It's a history of housing growth, and so now we're putting something in place that, oh, to get the affordable housing, we're going to build 4 or 5 times more market rate so we can afford. And by the way, the market rate housing will be slightly more expensive than it otherwise would be, so we can do this targeted amount. So I think that's going to be one of the issues to kind of play out in this process. So,
the other thing just to keep in mind is that the state has, Governor Baker has said publicly that his goal was to create, I think it's 350,000 housing units by 2025. So, you know, so the state is really advocating for creating more housing in an effort to bring down the general.
There's a housing shortage, yes.
Yeah, to address the shortage and the costs. So, you know, I think the idea is that if more housing is created, there will be less demand and things will kind of even out a little bit too. So you know, I get it. I get that you know, there's a lot of wariness about creating housing, but I just think that you know, having a tool as like inclusionary zoning is a good tool for our community to have.
Thank you.
And I just want to add to this that, Rob, I hear what you're saying, and yes, it would be great if we didn't have to add housing here at Ashland or anywhere in Massachusetts, but we have not created enough housing for the people who want to live here. And that's why we're seeing home prices go up, right? And this is from the presentation that was done yesterday by DHCD regarding housing. From 1960 to 1990, in, I believe it's just the MBTA communities, 900,000 units of housing were created in those 30 years. From 1990 until present, only 470,000 units of housing has been created. So people want to live here. And yes, we'd love to be able to keep our community small, but that's not reality, right? So by using inclusionary zoning, it would allow us to get more affordable and different housing. And it's a public discussion, right? And that's what has to happen. What this conversation that we're having amongst the 5 of us, we have to put it out in the public. We have to give them the information. We have to give them the tools in the background so that decisions can be made.
I think it's that's right, and it's a good discussion to have.
And we'll have more of them for sure, Rob. You need to. It's too important of a topic not to. Brandy, thank you for your presentation. I know it's not an easy road to hoe, but I'll tell you, it's one that needs to be followed up and get done. So it can only, like you said, it's a tool that would help the town in many ways. So I appreciate the comments tonight and the discussion that we had, even though it was a brief discussion. I would ask that we discuss the conservation restrictions for 125 Front Street. at this point in time. So,
Yeah.
Michael, do you want to?
Sure. I mean, we were just talking about properties that had some complexities associated with it.
Mhm.
And I don't think there's a better example than 125 Front Street. It's actually very similar to the Olive Street property, but just as some background, the chair and I talked recently about some of the outstanding conservation restrictions that are still, again, outstanding here in town, and the possibility of reconvening the conservation restriction working group or doing something to start moving on these. And really the first one that we should address is the one on Front Street, because the legislation granting the property to the town from the Ashland Redevelopment Authority, we're required, as does the CPA legislation, that we put the appropriate restrictions on there, which includes a conservation restriction for open space and also an affordable housing restriction. I went back and looked, excuse me one second. I went back and looked at when the property was purchased and how it was purchased. And you can see it was purchased for a total of $245,000 back in 2004. It's about an acre and a half, 1.56 acres. And out of that $245,000, $157,000 was taken from the affordable housing bucket, and 87,000, almost 88,000 was taken from the open space bucket.
Question, Michael, before you continue. Now, the warrant article speaks to a different configuration. So I think it talks about 100, 145, 100 out of open space, 100 out of affordable, and 45 out of general. So, you know, how does that coincide?
Well, I got this information, and I included the warrant articles as well, but I got this directly from the Community Preservation Coalition website and their database of projects. I do have to go back through and have to reconcile that and see
Okay.
what happened or why that is wrong. But let's just say, I guess what I'm asking for is how would you like me, first of all, would you like to convene the conservation restriction working group to do this? Or would you like to take a shot at it kind of on our own here in consultation with other appropriate boards and committees? The other I'd like to know is, do you want me to start seeing the potential of, okay, do we have to put a conservation restriction on some part of the property and affordable housing restriction on another? Is there a way you can combine them? What is it that you would like to see out of the property? And then I can take that information and I can start working on that. Is that enough information for you to get started on this discussion, or?
Going to be quite the discussion. First of all, and I think Steve made a very valid point, is that when you look at the warrant article from October 25th, 2004, it does break it down to 1,000, 100,000, 100,000, and 45,000, which is a little different than what was on the CPA funding paperwork that we see here. And I think we need to get some sort of clarification on that, how the money was actually divided, where it came from, before this discussion goes any further, because I think it's based on that, because if certain things are going to come into play, does Article 97 come into play on this if we do a deed restriction on this with respect to what we want to do with the property in the future?
Well, I think, Joe, to answer that question, if we're looking at, regardless of what we'll call it the split is, you know, if we need to look at separating or dividing the parcel, not physically or legally, but in terms of thinking about it from a CPA perspective. Again, whether it's 50-50, 66-33, however, is that what you would like to do? Would you like to find a way to do something collectively on the whole property? Or do you want me to take a look at the possibility of paying back one of the buckets in order to make to basically choose between affordable housing and open space on this parcel? The law changed. I think at some point this was done very early in the CPA legislation's time, and I think the rules had changed. I think there's more flexibility with it being an older purchase.
Yolanda, you had, I saw it. Go ahead, Yolanda.
Actually, Steve's hand has been up longer than mine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry about that.
Thank
My
you.
screen is a little
Thank you.
split shot. There you go. I'm sorry, Steve.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
That's okay. Thanks. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Yolanda. I'll be brief. So first of all, I would advocate for creating or reconstituting the conservation restriction group. I think Brandy and I just recently had a Valentine's subcommittee meeting, and it appeared to me, correct me if I'm wrong, Brandy, but there seemed to be a number of interested people that wanted to reconstitute that committee. I can't speak as to what happened in the past with the past committee, but from my observation, wasn't very effective at that time. Maybe things will be different at this point. So I would advocate for reconstituting that. The comment about your, Michael, about transfer of buckets, I would certainly want to advocate for that to see if one bucket can be returned and another bucket filled to potentially make it an open space parcel. And I guess the comment or question I have is a affordable housing restriction doesn't occur until you actually have a building to put a restriction on. So I'm assuming that there's absolutely no need to be looking to place an affordable housing restriction on the property until that time when there's an actual building to restrict. Is that accurate?
I'm not sure, Steve.
Okay, so that would be a question. That would be a question to ask. So I think the need for an affordable housing restriction without having an actual property or building to put a deed restriction on, and also the transfer of buckets to buckets.
Go ahead, Yolanda.
So I would agree with Steve that we need to reconstitute the conservation restriction or the restriction working group, not just conservation restriction, but the restriction working group. I think this goes to a further discussion tied into our housing discussion and our open space discussion, right? This parcel particularly was purchased because it was purchased for the redevelopment authority and they were going to create housing there. And then that fell apart and different decisions were made and now it's being used for something else, right? We have that same issue with the corner spot. The corner spot was purchased with affordable housing money because we were going to build affordable housing there. Now, I mean, if we would told people that we're going to get rid of the corner spot and create housing on that location, they'd go crazy, similar to the farm, to the Front Street. So I think the restriction group needs to get reconstituted. I think we need to look at the makeup, making sure that it's from people who represent different areas and different interests in the community, right? So it's not just looking at the conservation restrictions. That's important for a lot of these parcels, but we need to look at what the affordable housing is going to look like as well, and what true recreation, not just I forget what it's called, passive recreation, but active recreation, right? We've lost parcels because we've changed them into just passive recreation when we thought they were going to have some active recreation on it. People want trails, people want play, you know, we want a skate park. There's a lot of things that we want as a community. So I understand this parcel's coming up and it's being brought up, but this is not the only parcel that we're having an issue with. And, you know, we start down the road of having a conversation, and then, I mean, I'll admit, you know, sometimes because of what's happening in leadership on our board, we go different ways. And I think, so we need to have the restriction working group needs to be brought back together. And I would not just call it the conservation, because we have some historic issues, we have some housing issues, and we want to look at active recreation, not just passive recreation. And it needs to tie into inclusionary zoning. It needs to tie into open space. It needs to tie into all kinds of things. I mean, we're talking about Olive Street, you know, the Simpson property was purchased for affordable housing. I would say that the people who live on Olive Street would have the same complaint about you know, like the Independence Lane people, because they don't want more traffic on Olive Street because of the road. Well, you know, we got to look at what we have and where we can put this housing and what we need to do with these restrictions. But I would say the first thing is, let's find out who's interested, either the people who were on the restriction working group, see if they are still interested, try to broaden the people that are sitting there, tie it into our open space plan, this inclusionary zoning, and other things that we're doing.
Rob, Brandy? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to reconstitute the conservation restriction working group. I'm not sure, Yolanda just asked if they're not doing conservation restrictions, are you saying there's other restrictions that like historical?
Yeah.
There's historical restrictions, there's housing, right? There's affordable housing restrictions. It's not just conservation. We're looking at that for the Valentine property. That's not just a conservation restriction. There's a historical restriction as well.
Yes, that I guess I could see. I wasn't
So it's
aware
not
that there
just,
was-
and that's what I think has been the issue, right? Oh, we got to get the conservation restriction work. Well, they're not all just conservation restrictions. If we think of it that way, we're going to have only open space, which for some people that's fine, but we have properties that we need to do more with.
Well,
So
I guess
when
I
we-
was thinking about in terms of the conservation restriction, it's a very legalistic, kind of complicated subject. We have to get a holder and a nonprofit. So I
Same
would
with
guess if
I
there's
believe with historic restrictions as well, and
Okay.
affordable something.
So
Yeah.
I would be, you know, I would be amenable to including that as well. That seems to make sense. I'm not sure about the other things you're talking about, because these are the kind of specific restrictions we wanted resolved. And I did have, Michael, a question about just to review. Are you saying that we would, in effect, move the funds back into open space from affordable housing, because we're not putting affordable housing there? And I guess my concern would be that depleting the open space bucket in the CPA.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if, let's use Steve's hypothetical. If we did keep it as open space, like I said, and that we wanted that for the entirety of the property, what we would do is we would reimburse the housing bucket $157,000. I do think that's only appropriate because,
Right.
you know, it's really
if we
not
don't do
right.
housing there. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
And I guess my question on that then would be, would that be amenable to the farmer's market operation that we do there? I mean, that is that parcel, right? Am I
Yes.
got the right
well,
one?
yeah, well, I think that would be dependent upon the conservation restrictions. And I think certainly the
Think you
farmer's
might-
market would be something.
Yeah, all right. Well, that would,
would
so
be
we'd have to find a
allowable.
holder and negotiate that. So there, I think there could be,
But the farmer's
issues
market
there.
could be a holder, actually.
what's that?
The farmer's market could actually be a holder.
So
Yeah, that's.
It
an
is a
interesting
90
question.
501c3, right?
let me just
Yep.
jump in real quick. So yes, we're 501c3. Our parent organization is called Ashland Healthy Harvest. Now, the only issue that I would see is would the state recognize our nonprofit as a qualified holder for a conservation restriction. Now, it's not in our mission to have, conservation issues or plans. That's not to say that, after 11 years of being stewards of the property that they wouldn't find it amenable. I don't know that, but, that would be my question. And, the fact is, Michael, the land goes on forever. I'm not sure about the farmer's market, right? So I hate to say that, but that's, but that's
All right.
another element here as well. So.
Sure. Just one thing then I think to add to this, I think if we do pursue this, we should, and this kind of goes to Yolanda's point, we should think about active open space recreation. I think if that's available, like a park or some sort adjacent or encompassing, and I wanted to nudge Steve and propose a skate park there, but he didn't go for that. But
I'm not
I think
biting, Rob, not
I
biting.
think the skate park idea at Stone Park makes sense, right? There's that other look, the
So
other
anyway.
side of the pavilion, but
Right.
yeah, so
I would like I could see having a real park there if we do go that route. We should, or some, some kind of open space that's meaningful and marked off, I would think.
Just
from the
remember
farmer's
one
market.
thing, Rob, you're putting a park next to a railroad track,
Yeah,
which
or
is,
something.
which is
yeah,
very busy
yeah,
now because of all the trains that are
Right.
coming through with the commuter rails and stuff, so.
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
Okay. Michael, you had
All
your
right,
hand raised. Are you, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm good. I'm sorry. I
You're
just
good? Okay, Brandy, go ahead.
So I just wanted to just add my thoughts. So I think it's a good idea to reconstitute the restriction working group. I think that, this particular property brings back ARA memories.
in the kitchenette of town hall.
Yeah. So that, I think, it's been 18 years. I think it's a good idea to start working on, putting a restriction in place. And I think that the restriction working group is good because, there's other properties that we kind of need to look at too and prioritize which restrictions we need to start working on too. So I do think it's a good idea. And, going back to the buckets that were used for the funding, if we're pretty certain, and it sounds like, we are pretty certain that we want to remove the housing component from 125 Front Street, I think we should pursue that in changing, reimbursing the trust and reimbursing that bucket, because I think it does make sense. If putting housing in that property is such a wonky piece of property that I think open space makes a lot more sense for me personally. So.
I agree.
Brandy, I won't argue with you. That was one of my first concerns, is that putting housing next to, a very active railway system is a means for disaster that happened down the road.
Yeah.
I've been saying that for a number of years, and I'll continue to say it. I don't disagree. Would you folks entertain calling this group the property restriction group?
How about,
or advisory group instead of conservation restriction? Because that actually kind of narrows in on just one specific issue and not all the issues that we've been discussing about certain properties that we have in town. So how about property restriction committee?
working group.
A working group.
That works.
That makes sense for me.
I like it.
can I
I mean, unless it has to have a specific name for
Well,
state bylaws
This
or
is true, but
something, I don't know.
we could actually, run this by Lisa and see if that's something. But Michael, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, certainly not all the time, but the large majority of the time, I think in Massachusetts, and I think all of the time here in Ashland, these property restrictions that we're talking about is all derived from acquisitions utilizing CPA funds. So does it make sense to have this really kind of be an arm of the Community Preservation Committee? Because there you have the type of representation that you were talking about, Yolanda, the diverse coalition of different stakeholders. I certainly have not ran this by CPC, so.
Well, it's interesting. Kathy's monitoring this conversation. I don't know if she wants to.
I like the idea of letting it be open to some new people, Michael. I think CPC does a lot of great work, but they do a lot of work, right? So one thing we're always talking about is how can we get new voices and new people involved? Will we get new people and new voices? I don't know. I mean, I know there's a number of people who were on the working group who want to stay involved, but I also know there's some people who don't. So, and because for restrictions, I believe we have to monitor them as a select board, right? I mean, I know CPC works with them, but they have to come through us.
It depends on who the owner of the
Property is.
Of the restriction is, or who actually holds the conservation restriction. So they're charged with the enforcement essentially of it and
Yeah.
Okay.
Michael, that's an interesting thought, but I think echo what Yolanda was saying. I think it's a ton of work. And the other thing is we did get at that Valentine committee meeting, there was like 60 or 70 people on that call, and a lot of them, and a number of people did talk about the conservation restriction working group as a solution. So I think my gut feeling is that we'll find some interest in that. I've had at least one or two people say they wanted to be on it and do it. So, at least that shows that, we'll have I think we have a chance at having the resources to do it. Whereas the CPC, I think, it strikes me as just a lot for to ask them to do.
Well, that's a good. I
just wanted to say the other thing is, I'm sorry, we could
suggest that CPC is a funding entity. They accept applications for grants for funding. I think this process is better served, I think, if it's done through a community-wide entity, and there's going to be overlap without question. I mean, I agree with Yolanda. It should be broad-based. I know there were a lot of people at our meeting, as Rob said, 60 to 70 people. Well, it's time to basically put your money where your mouth is. If you're interested in this, sign up, raise your hand, and then do the work. And let's not keep talking about it endlessly. We've been talking about this long as. So
yeah,
Yolanda, go ahead. You were.
Just one last thing. The other thing is we could, one of the things that I think about is many hands make light work, right? We could have a core group of the restriction group, right, that we appoint, and then there could be other people that say, okay, because it could take a lot of work and a lot of research. Okay, this group is going to work on this piece of property. Okay, we need some volunteers to help a subcommittee to work on this piece of property, so that it's not just the 5 or 6 members of the property restriction working group, but there might be people that get pulled in to work on separate properties, right? So just like Brandy and Steve have been working on the Valentine property, and they're using the people from the Valentine committee to work on that. There's someone who's, there's 1 or 2 people from that working group who are going to work on Front Street. Well, there might be people who can help them with that, or the corner spot, because we have to look at what's going on there, or the Simpson property. So
yep, makes sense.
I think there's some great possibilities here. Yeah. And as Steve said, it's time for people, if you're really interested, step up and help, because it's a lot of work, and a lot of it's been put on the back burner because of other things we're trying to do.
Just one final point to that is, we're talking a lot about the committee doing work and all of that good stuff, but this does fall down to staff a lot of times. Although I will have to say the Conservation Restriction Working Group, the last iteration, did a lot of work on their own.
Yes.
But this is why I suggested working on one property and concentrate on that and putting our resources in towards that. And then maybe expanding it into looking at some of the other properties. We could take the lessons that just from a capacity angle, not just from a committee member standpoint, which I think is real, but also a staff standpoint. And then I think it would be,
that's valid.
I think it's a good, I think if we're able to concentrate on one thing, I mean, part of our problem right now is we do a ton of things kind of well on a good day. I think if we have the ability to concentrate on one of these and do it really, really well, we can use that as a template for some of the other properties that we wanna
Valid
work.
point, Michael.
Don't disagree. Anybody else have any comments, concerns? We good?
So-
Is
so
there
I-
any action we need to take right now, Michael?
So I think it's been a really good discussion. It sounds like the board wants to look at reconstituting the conservation restriction working group. Would you like to
Make a motion on that?
advertise? Well, would you like to advertise for new members, et cetera, things like that?
Yeah.
Start
I
the
think that's a
process?
great
Yeah, I
idea.
would say if there's people who were on it and want to continue, let them, they should let us know that they want to continue. And then we also should apply, look for new members to add to that.
Okay. Awesome.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
And Michael, there's a few questions there that we would like answers as well, right?
Right, stemming from the earlier part of our conversation, correct?
Conversation, yeah.
Yep, for the Front Street property.
Okay,
And if Michael doesn't have them in writing, if you wanted to email your questions to Michael with respect to that, so that way it will help his memory. That would probably be helpful.
to that point, could you please CC Diane if you do that? Or Susan? Susan's had her hands full this week. She's like,
Wow,
Diana Way, yeah.
take a little burden off of her.
sounds good. Well, it was a very good dialogue just now, and I greatly appreciate everybody's comments and concerns, and I think we're headed in the right direction for down the road for the Property Restriction Committee. Working group, sorry, Property Restriction Working Group. I was just reminded. Okay. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. You've all had the opportunity to read everything over. Any questions with respect to the minutes of the meetings that we're ready to approve?
Nope.
We're all set, then I would entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented on our agendas.
Is there a second?
Second.
All righty, voice vote, please.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
Here I.
Hensman, I.
Vignani, aye, and that's 5-0. Thank you. Okay, we'll head to, before we get to that, because we're talking about priority projects and stuff. I'll refer to the conversation that I said I was going to hold back from my report, and that had to do with an open vacancy. Well, it will be open on the planning board. So if we're asking people who are interested in getting actively involved until February 16th, I believe, is that the date that we had said?
February 17th, the day after our
17th, I'm
meeting.
sorry, February 17th, if anybody's interested in running to fill that position, February 17th, please direct yourself to the town clerk's office to pull papers again on February 17th. Not anytime sooner, because we have to take a vote to make that happen, and we're not going to do that
Or
until
you-
16th.
You got to let them know which board, Joe.
And it's the planning board. I thought I said that earlier. I'm sorry. But thank you. Thank you for reminding me.
And just so folks know, it will be a 3-year seat.
A 3-year stint, correct. Okay. Very good. Now we'll go to priority project updates. The Rail Transit District.
I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep all this brief. I have nothing on the rail transit district. So that's a good start. In regards to downtown, now, I don't know if you've heard the beeping in the background. This is not related to the downtown project, but I did want to use it as an opportunity to let everybody know that DPW is working on some snow removal in downtown tonight. So that's why you're hearing some of the beeping. It sounds like they're wrapping up. We're, as long as the weather still cooperates, we're still going to do as much work as we can on downtown. And
Sounds good.
here. So this week they're working on Main and Summer and Homer doing the traffic signal conduit and installing the pull boxes. And they're also doing the conduit and bases on the Front Street, the north side of Front Street this week. Next week they'll be working on light conduit and bases on Main Street north of the tracks. And then they're also going to start working on some of the drainage work. Now that's a pretty big milestone as well. And then they'll continue that into February. So we're starting to move into a different phase, I guess you could say.
Michael, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm interrupting. There was a discussion a while back about work that was going to be done on the weekend because they needed to do work under the railroad tracks. Is that still ongoing, or has that been, what's the status with that?
So we're still working with the MBTA, Keolis, and Eversource on that. It has not been easy. Remember how long it took us to get the MBTA access road?
I do.
So we're talking about that type of pace here, but hopefully we'll be able to do that in the spring. We're on track to do that in the spring.
Okay, good. I just didn't want it to tie up the project anymore, and type of deal. Okay.
It's caused some complications for sure, but nothing that we haven't been able to manage around.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome. Public safety in Mendez School. So I'll start with public safety. We don't have to get into like some of the details of construction, but I did have the opportunity along with Joe and Steve to go tour the facility. And it's, first of all, what really stands out is how big of a building it is inside and how much space there is. And also, I think the quality of workmanship that, lay people like us can tell is pretty impressive. But again, Jen, is there anything you wanted to add from like a project management standpoint? So, or Joe and Steve, did you want to?
I was just totally
add some
impressed.
observations?
Totally impressed with the workmanship and the quality of the work that I had seen, especially when it came to the masonry work. Very, very clean, very right on with the way they did their work. Cleaned up after themselves. I mean, I couldn't believe how clean the construction site was. No, I don't know if they cleaned it up because we were there on a tour.
I think they
I do have to tell you, it was absolutely, it was very clean, to be honest with you, if you to talk about a construction site. So OSHA has no concerns about that right now, for sure.
I would think any of the public safety staff that complains about lack of space, it's not going to smell right with me, because it's a big building. The apparatus bays are very large, plenty of storage, plenty of capacity for hazmat cleanups and equipment cleanups, storage. It really is, I think, something that was designed to last for 50 years. And so it was a great tour.
It was very good. Very good. So I'm sorry Jen wasn't there, because it was nice and warm inside.
Oh, I think Jen got her own tour. So
She gets a tour every day. Who are you kidding?
Yeah.
Every week. No, it's very good. Really appreciate all the work that Bill Nagel and Leo are doing for us there, and the construction folks. I was very pleased. That's all I'll say. Just very, very pleased.
good. With regards to Mendez School, over the last couple of weeks, we've we've had a few different noise complaints from some of the operations that are going on there. And so we've been working with the building committee and Raj, our health director, to address and mitigate those to the extent that we can. I think a lot of work has been done in terms of creating sound barriers and things of that nature to minimize the disruption to residents as much as possible.
Is it a morning startup, Michael? Is it the
I'm sorry?
morning startup?
No, it's just it's a lot of rock activity. So you got the whole ram going, then we're going to have rock crushing, you know, all of that good stuff. That's a loud bit of operation there. We're blasting, but the blasting, you hardly know what's happening. So that's pretty interesting. I do believe we're getting soon some of our outstanding bids for some of the sub work that was necessary. And I think that's all I have for right now. Regarding that,
We're getting ready to do we're getting ready to do a transition from pre-construction to construction as they finish up some of the site work and get ready to start digging and pouring foundations. And I would just say, if there's some people watching and you have issues with the noise, make sure you get on the email list, because they are sending out emails to people who have signed up for the email to learn about when the blasting is happening. And I know they're very close with the abutters who have signed up on the email. They're not they did actively reach out before the blasting started, but they didn't add people to any email list unless people said, please put me on your email list. So we just need to make sure that if people are interested, they've put their name on the email list to get notification of when there's going to be a lot of noise and things like that.
Excellent. Okay, 126. So I spoke with Doug, and we're really going to push MassDOT to give us an overview, a more detailed overview of the next year. So I'm hoping to have that for our next meeting. Just I know we're into February, but really would like to get a sense of what's going to happen. I can tell you just from an overall broad standpoint, it's probably going to be more disruptive than last year was. Even though a lot of the utility work has been completed, we'll probably have up to 5 crews out there working on any given day. So one of the things I do want to bring up is that there might be the possibility of a lot of night work. So Doug has requested that the contractor for the state provide us with a pros and cons analysis of doing work at night, at least from their perspective. And so I'm not anticipating asking for a vote at the next meeting to allow for night work, but I would like to have the board have that in their hands if that does come up. So I'll have a better update next week or next meeting. And then the Valentine project.
Mike, excuse me,
sorry.
before you move on to that, just to, we still, the schedule for putting in the crossing and the light across from Market Basket, is that part of next year's, or,
I don't, Rob, I don't know that specifics, no.
But it's in the plan, right? They're going to do it.
I believe so.
Okay.
You're talking about the crosswalk, the crossing.
Yeah, the flashing light and all that.
Yeah.
For the.
Pretty sure that's there. I'll have to double check.
Right. Okay, thanks.
With the Valentine project, I do know that Steve and Brandy, I'll probably steal your thunder here, but I know you folks met, and you'll be providing a recommendation to the select board at a future meeting.
Well, not a recommendation, Michael, but a draft.
I'm sorry.
Right, yeah.
But one of the things I did want to talk about tonight is just some of the soil issues that we're having there, which aren't major. But Novus has provided us with an estimate for the work that needs to be done there. And this is work that's required under the MCP, which is the Massachusetts Contingency Plan guidelines. And what we would look at doing is remediating the issues there so that we would have an unrestricted status on that property moving forward. And that cost is going to be between 40 and 50,000. So not 6 figures, but it's not going to be chump change. And what I would like to know is, would the board like me to try to figure out a way to accomplish that this year, look at next year? I think the sooner we do it, the better. But
I don't disagree, but it's going to open up the property to do the things that need to get done. I mean, my thought would be to get that. How many yards are we looking at, Michael? Roughly.
oh, gosh, Jen, do you remember when we were talking to Adam, what he said? It's,
I might be able to pull it up.
Does 35 sound right to you?
that number sounds right.
Okay,
30, between 30 and 50. But I want to double check before we confirm that, before I go on the record, if you will.
no, it's okay.
Give me just 1 second.
I would say that if it's something we can do this year, let's do it. Sooner that we get it done, the better.
Right.
Gives lets us use the property sooner.
Mhm.
That would be my recommendation. 40 to 50K. And I know we keep putting money into that property, but people want us to do something with it, so we need to make it so that we can.
Okay. All right.
So do you want us to entertain a motion right now? To get that?
No, I don't think I necessarily need a motion. I just wanted to get your direction on it. So,
Well, I don't have a problem getting it done. If it needs to get done, like Yolanda said, the sooner the better.
I believe it has been confirmed that it's 35.
Okay,
Thanks, Susan. Awesome. And so moving on into town manager report. I've got a lot of updates on the police chief search. So we have, the profile is out there. It's been advertised in a number of locations, including the Mass Chiefs of Police and a lot of minority police trade groups as well. So we've placed advertisements there. Hoping to get a pretty good, a pretty robust pool. I think we've had 4 to 5 people either inquire or submit an application already. The due date is the 28th, I believe, so there's still plenty of time. Since our last meeting, I've actually had a focus group meeting with Chief Moore and Paula from Commonwealth Police Legacy. And we had a very, very good focus group with about 9 participants that brought various backgrounds and perceptions. And it was just really, really fascinating to listen to the different thoughts and the different answers to some of the questions that Chief Moore had generated. And also listen to some of their thoughts just about policing in general and what they would like to see out of their police chief. And it was amazing. Chief Moore and I both agreed at the end of the night, not only did we have a good set of questions or the basis of a good set of questions of which we could ask candidates, but we almost had like a game plan for the chief's first 6 months or a year as to what to do. It was really incredible. Also, since our last meeting, I believe Chief Moore has been in touch with each of you or has tried to get in touch with each of you in order to set up individual meetings. And I hope that's going well. If you have not heard from Chief Moore, if you could please let me know and I will make sure that he contacts you. But anyway, that seems to finally be rolling and picking up some steam. So I'm glad to see that.
Good.
In terms of COVID numbers, I believe.
Well, Michael, I'm sorry, just before we move on, I read the cover today on the town website. That was well done, I thought, in terms of the description of the police chief search. I just made me realize, and forgive me, have we appointed this panel of people to do the interviews yet? Or when will we be doing that? Or what's the status?
I've selected a number of people already to do those interviews, but they haven't done them. They haven't done them
Right.
yet.
No. So are we going to see that list or have we seen it? I just don't remember.
I still need to add one more, but I can certainly share what I have, Rob. It's certainly not a secret by any means.
Sure. Well, I think that would be good. I just wasn't, yeah, that'd be good to see who you've selected and maybe why.
Yeah, I
And-
think I hope you'll be pleased. I think there's a very broad base of perspectives and backgrounds.
Yeah, and just so I understand the process is you're getting recommendations from this panel, and then are you going to then discuss that with us in some? Or you mentioned in a like public interviews. And if you could just maybe review that process a little bit briefly. I don't know,
Sure.
maybe everyone else knows it better than I do, but I realized I was a little hazy about how some of this is going to work.
So once the panel presents finalists, they're anticipated to present 2 to 3 finalists that I will then interview in public session on TV, live on TV, similar to what we did again when we appointed the process we utilized for Chief Davis, or when we selected Chief Davis. And at that point, hopefully I'll have enough information to make a decision, and I'll put forward my appointment, and then the select board has the opportunity, if they disagree with my appointment, to convene a meeting and reject it. So that's the process moving
Okay,
forward.
great.
Unless I ask for a waiver of the 15-day waiting period.
There you go. All right, thank you.
And you agree to that.
Yeah.
So that's been good. And COVID update, I believe Ed does a pretty good job of informing everybody of where our numbers stand. I do want to bring up the fact that tomorrow we do have a clinic, a vaccination clinic here at the lower level of Town Hall from 10 to 1 p.m. As of this afternoon, we still had some slots open. So I would encourage you to reach out. The information is on our social media page and on our website about how to schedule an appointment. And then if there's no questions there, I'll get into budget stuff. We'll just call it. So the first thing I did share with you, I believe, a copy of the state's latest OPEB report, which gave OPEB numbers for all 351 cities and towns. Again, I provided a little bit of an analysis there for you. I think we're in pretty good shape compared to a lot of communities. We're at a little over 7% in terms of our funded ratio, which is how much we have in assets related to what our current what our future liabilities are. You'll see some communities that have upwards of 10, 20, in some cases even 30%. But one of the things that they're utilizing to generate those high numbers is a higher discount rate, which is essentially an interest rate. We use a very conservative 4% number. You see some of those communities utilizing a 6%, 7% return, which I'm not necessarily sure is realistic. Again, a lot of this is numbers on paper right now. So I just want to caution everybody, take that with a grain of salt, but it does look like the plan that we're putting together is working. I'd love to see a previous report. I don't think they've done previous reports though, and see kind of how we've come along since over a period of years. But I found that very interesting. And if you have any questions, please let me know. But in regards to the FY23 budget, we did get the governor's initial cherry sheet numbers. They were very positive compared to what we were projecting. We're still seeing how that all filters out in terms of offsets, some of the things that are required, and then also the charges that are also part of the cherry sheets. But overall, we're in better shape than I anticipated that we would be in. And I would recommend that as the schools are starting to develop their budget, and when they get to a point that's pretty solid, I think that's when we should collectively meet and talk about a few things, not just the 23 budget, but then also start talking about maybe how we address some things within our financial policies, specifically the Special Education Stabilization Fund.
Yeah, they should be close because by statute, I think they have to have it by the end of January. Right? They have
I
to
know they're
report out.
pushing. I know they're pushing for it. And then, actually, this is somewhat related. I did receive from Jim just an email containing the number of students from some of our multifamily housing places here in Ashland, because that's something that we keep an eye on. And I know there's a perception that these places bring in a lot of school kids, but the data is not really bearing it out. Take that for what it's worth. I'm not necessarily saying that's a good or bad thing. I just hear a lot of chatter about, some of these projects bringing in a lot of school kids, and I'm just not seeing it. What we're seeing is that people are moving into, families are selling their single family homes after their kids have aged out, if you will, and they're looking at retiring or maybe moving to warmer climates. And new families are moving in with younger kids that in turn go through the school system. So not necessarily sure why I brought that up in regards to the budget, but it just seemed important. And then finally, what is not on here, but is probably the most important announcement I'm going to make tonight, or thing I'm going to say. Jen's, wow, look at Jen. She's like, what's he going to say now? I don't know if you got my notice earlier today, but Tara Ward has announced her retirement after 18 years of service in Ashland and many more years as a town clerk. So we're certainly sad to see Tara go, and she just has a wealth of knowledge and has just overseen a lot of change in the clerk's office and the clerk's functions. But we're happy that she's going to be able to embark on this next chapter of her life, and once she made her decision, you can just tell a big weight was lifted off of her. And I think it's probably a couple of years earlier than maybe what she had anticipated, but quite frankly, that's a pattern that we're seeing all over. People are choosing to retire. So we'll keep you updated on the process of filling that position. And I hope you'll join me in wishing her a happy retirement.
Michael, are we planning on doing anything for Tara?
Yeah.
Okay, I would hope so.
Absolutely. And I'm really hoping we can do something in person and not virtual.
Yeah.
Well,
But we should have her.
I'm sorry, Rob. I don't mean to. I'm sorry?
We should have her come to a select board meeting as well.
Yeah.
Just to,
Definitely.
Congratulations.
I saw that email and I was like, oh no, but I assume it's something she wants to do, and I think we really appreciated her over the years. So
Yeah,
she'll be missed
greatly, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, she's always she's a strong presence, but also flexible and understanding about things. So really,
that's
comment.
probably the best, most succinct description of Tara I think I've heard, Rob. Congratulations. So
strong but flexible. People say that about me all the time. So.
Okay, let's move on.
And that's all I have. That's all I have. Right.
Thank you, Michael. Are we into board reports now? Wow.
yeah.
All right. Yolanda, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do this. Okay. First of all, I want to thank the DPW for all their great work on the storm. I was not here to experience, but it was great to be able to come into town on Sunday with roads that were clear. And so congratulations and thank you to them. I had the honor of chairing and helping with a session through MAPC with the Metro West Regional Collaborative and Magic Region, where we had Secretary Keneally talk to us about this MBTA housing, the new guidelines that have been out. And I know that we were chastised for, as a select board, not coordinating with the planning board to respond to this. And what I would say is I think our planning board should look at it, and they can certainly respond as well. And even as individuals, if there are things that we see and we want to give feedback on this, I think the more input and feedback that DHCD gets on this guidance that they're trying to create, the better. The information I gave earlier about the amount of housing that's been created was very interesting to me to hear that, from 60 to 90, we had 900,000 units of new housing created. And from 1990 on, it's only been 470,000. You would think that, how is that possible? But I look here in Ashland, we did a lot of townhouses and things like that, which was a lot of dense housing. And since then, we've had a lot of single family homes. So not as many units created. And that wasn't broken out by specific I think that was just all of the MBTA communities and their surrounding communities. The interesting part from that I took away from was I'd like us to, and I don't know if this has been done, Michael, if we can get a map of where our station is, half mile around that, and what that looks like for what we have available. And the interesting part was the 50 acres that they're looking for does not have to be within that half mile. Part of it can be in, so 25 of it can be in that half mile and the rest can be out. And it does not have to be contiguous. So those are
Oh,
two
boy,
interesting
that's different.
points. Yes. Yeah, so all 50 acres do not have to be within the half mile radius, and it doesn't have to be all contiguous.
You know, can I just, to break it on your board report, I went to, MMA had the session this morning. I was able to attend about half of it. Very interesting. I think we should put this on the agenda for our next meeting, just as a kind of a planning, zoning, housing discussion, because there is a lot of, I was going to ask that we ask the town planner to give us a briefing paper on this, which is, I think, similar to what you're asking for.
Yeah.
Exactly what is involved with the 1 mile radius, because we did make that, you know, comment to increase it to downtown. But I think, you know, I think we got to look at this closely because it is an opportunity for multifamily housing around the rail station, and we may or may not already qualify. So
right.
I think we got to really get the details on that Peter should understand it fully and what the implication could be and what, if any, other comments we should make. And, you know, doing that with the planning board would be good as well. But I would like to see that paper from Peter. So sorry to move in on your, but
That's
you know,
okay.
I have very similar kind of thoughts on that.
Just
And
one
then
quick-
both Peter and Emma were at the session, so I'm sure they had some other takeaways as well.
So
And that's really all I have. But
I don't mean to
Okay.
jump in on that as well,
Go
but
ahead,
I
Randy.
know it was discussed at the last planning board meeting and Peter is working on it. So just
Good.
to let you guys know.
Because I think we ought to be active on this and really,
Mhm.
you know, analyze
well, we
the zoning.
only have until March 31st to submit more comments. So
Yeah, well, I was also thinking if we look at this and see there's an issue and want to make zoning changes, we should move on that to town meeting. You know, if
yeah, I don't
there's
know that we
issue-
have to rush that, Rob. I don't know that we have
All
to
right.
make those zoning changes by this town meeting. I think
Yeah.
because we're not going to have the revised final
Yeah, okay.
guidelines
I got it.
until sometime
Okay.
this summer. Oh,
Sure.
the other update I did want to give, and I don't know if people are aware of this, they have extended the open meeting law. You know, the special regulations that were passed that were going to be ending in April.
Right, April 1st.
They've extended them to, it's either June 31st or July 15th.
And for spring elections.
Right, and there is concern, people are trying to get it either put permanently in or pushed to the end of the year, because we don't want to have a scramble like some communities had last summer where the guidelines stopped and then they didn't vote the new ones in until a couple of days later. So it's being recommended that you tell your legislature, don't just do it to June, do it to the end of the year. But as
Are you
of
talking
right
about the
now, it's
remote?
good till June.
Is this the remote authorization you're talking about?
Yeah, so this is the remote for open meetings, for town
Oh.
meetings, and for our open meetings and stuff like that. And that was it.
Thank you, Yolanda. I will ask Rob next. I'll take 45 seconds off of his time.
Exactly, very good.
Go ahead, Rob, you're up, buddy.
Yeah, just one quick thing, you know, we're all supportive of this. It just occurred to me, you know, we should be trying to move ahead with Cadillac paint. So that's a quick throw out there. I think everybody's on board with that. And, you know, it's one of the things that just kind of came up that, you know, what are we doing with it? So hopefully.
So I'm
it's
going to
on
jump in on
everybody's-
you, Rob.
Sure.
I've been working with Ed. We are working with Beth Reynolds. She has someone who's willing to take the fencing down. It just couldn't happen in the fall.
Cool.
There is some grant information, so I'm going to take a look at that and talk to Ed about it and see if we can get, though we have funding. So I don't know that we need additional funding, and I'm going to run that by Michael. It
Right.
got put on hold because we have so many other things that we're doing. It's not that we don't want to do it, it's getting it done. So
Very
it
good.
is still being reviewed, and it's still, for me, it's something I'm still working on. It's just
Cool.
finding the time.
All right, thanks for doing that.
Yep.
That'd be a great addition. Yeah, so the other thing I wanted to talk about was, by the way, the commuter rail meeting is next week. So if there are any other issues, I know in terms of maintenance, there's been a ton of problems on the line with cold weather. It's just the performance is really down. The resiliency is just kind of disappointing. They had something called a rail defect that seems to be going, and switch problems almost all week. So anyway, but if anybody else, if there's Brandy gave me some comments. If there's anybody else that has anything.
I'll give you a quick one right now before I forget. The area where that trailer is, where their workers are there, and they use it as an office area.
Yeah,
it's a dump. They need to keep it clean. It's horrendous looking. I mean, it just, granted the building itself and is rusting out, and we keep asking for them to maintain it and give it a once over, but the area around it, I mean, it looks like a pigsty. I
That's
mean,
interesting. Yeah.
if they don't have respect for what they're doing, they should get that stuff out of there, because it looks like hell. It really does.
Okay, I'll pass that along.
Thank you. I didn't mean to overstep your time. Great, I'll give you another.
No, that's all right. I just added 45 seconds. No problem. No, the last thing. So I went to attended the sustainability committee last night, and it just a quick history lesson. So we passed a net zero resolution, I think, a year ago, maybe more. Say we'd moved to a net zero plan to get net zero by, I think, 2040. And then the follow-up with that was a more detailed net zero plan with all these kind of benchmarks and measures and you'll recall that Ash came before us, I think, a couple months ago and really presented the draft of it. So, but they're starting to think that the process maybe should be a little different. That is, they put this plan together with a lot of, a pretty big plan with a lot of backup. And instead of going to town meeting, they were concerned about how much time it might take and having the whole town meeting go through all the details. And also, one of the Ash is going to meet with the moderator to see what kind of time might be available in the spring town meeting. So there's kind of concern about the time available and, could people really become familiar with all the parts of the plan? I said, you guys should definitely think about doing it that way. It can be done. You have maybe public hearings before public meetings to get people familiar. You try to do it and get it passed. So that's kind of was the track we were on. Then, but the idea came up, and they wanted me to kind of talk to you folks, to the rest of the board about it, and the town manager about what would you think if they, instead of taking it to town meeting, took it to us for approval, and then for review and approval, and once this net zero plan with more details and backup and all the different measures such as stretch code and commercial things and incentives for the for switching to electricity and all the different issues, and then once that was approved really by us, it wouldn't go to town meeting. What would go to town meeting would be the specific follow-up actions and the warrant articles to do specific things in the plan and with additional details. So the plan our approval of plan would take the place of town meeting's approval as the kind of impetus for the measures that they were going to then take to town meeting as a result of the plan. So I said I'd bring it to the board and just kind of get some informal feedback, and you can either do that now or email the sustainability committee with your thoughts, but they're kind of thinking about what they should do. It would be an ambitious schedule to get it on the warrant and all the details and present it to the annual town meeting. But so they're kind of like just looking for thoughts and guidance on those two courses.
Good, Steve.
I would say, Rob, that there's a lot of elements to this. I'm not arguing against what they're thinking, but I think there's a lot of elements to this. And I think it's deserving of a bigger conversation among us, rather than just informal comments off the top of our heads. And
Oh, I
so on
see,
at this
yeah.
point. So, you know,
I'm
so
happy
maybe
to
if-
ask to put it on the agenda, and I'm sure Ash would love to come here and talk to us about it.
Yeah,
other
I
people.
think that would be more advisable. I would say from my standpoint, there's a lot of stakeholders involved with
Yeah.
with the net zero plan, with the stretch code and so on. And, you know, whether it's the sustainability committee or the select board, we need to have public comments here. We need to have lots of comments. And because there are lots of stakeholders. So I think we need to think this through and talk it through.
I have to agree with you, Steve. Totally agree. Yeah. They may want to entertain having public forums as well to get public input with respect to what they want to do.
So do you think
In addition.
we should put them on the agenda for our next meeting and bring them in? here
Well,
and
I mean,
have
we have some
discussion?
time to do that. We've got a lot going on in the next meeting.
Well,
we-
the only reason I bring it up is because if they're really going to shoot for the annual, which was the plan, they'll need to know fairly soon what they're going to do, or
Yeah.
make that decision fairly.
Well, the
soon.
first week in March still gives them plenty of time to get stuff done. If they,
I would
if-
also
mean-
recommend that they plan on having a public forum, right? Even
No, I
before,
think
you
they
know,
will.
at the
I
same
think they
time, if,
will.
you know, if they're waiting to come to
Yeah.
us, they should schedule a public forum
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
so that they can get input from the public, not just from us.
Yeah, that would definitely be part of the plan either way, I would think. I think. Okay,
Are you good, sir? Or you
yes,
need-
I think I am. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you. This is the first meeting that I did not hear anything regarding. I won't say it.
He almost said it. Wait a minute.
I
He
almost said it.
No,
But I
just
didn't.
keep
We're talking
going.
about
You don't need to
126.
recognize that. Let's get on with the board reports.
Yes, I know, Brandy. I have to tease them at least once during the meeting. Go ahead, Brandy, you're up next.
Okay, so I don't have a whole lot. We talked a lot about inclusionary zoning. I was at the Affordable Housing Trust meeting last week talking about it. Steve and I had, as we talked about, a Valentine subcommittee meeting to talk through the restrictions, and we will be bringing that to the board at a future meeting soon. We want to make sure we have a full board for that. And the other thing I wanted to just give spread some information. So tomorrow from 9 o'clock till noon is kindergarten registration at the middle school. And the Saturday, they always do a Saturday registration too. And that was supposed to be this past Saturday. So it got snowed out, so they changed it. So it's going to be this upcoming Saturday, February 5th from 9 to 12 at the Warren School. If you or anyone you know has an incoming kindergartner, make sure they get registered. It is important for the schools to have an accurate count of who's going to be coming to school in the fall, because they do a lot of planning around that, and they want to make sure they get the word out. So there's few folks that are coming at the last minute to register that first week of school. And so kind of part of that conversation that I had about that kind of got me thinking, because it was with a teacher at the Warren School who's an ELL teacher, and we were talking about communication, and you know, she was telling me some of the things that she does to reach out to her families, you know, via text and other apps, because you know, email kind of doesn't work, and social media doesn't necessarily reach everyone in different languages. So it's kind of gotten me thinking, you know, we talk about equity and we talk about inclusion. And so, you know, I'm starting to think in my mind how we can improve, potentially down the road, improve communications to reach folks that just never really know what's going on in town. So, it's still something very, very much kind of in the early thoughts, but I just wanted to share that with you guys because I think it's important. When we were talking about the equity study and sort of the next steps for that, I think part of it is also, languages and how we reach folks where English isn't the first language. So, our goal is always to communicate as well as we can. And so, I think I would be interested to see some of the other things that other towns do. So I might do some research into what might be out there and people are utilizing and having some success with. So I just wanted to throw that out there to the group. So that is it for me.
Thank you, Brandy. Mr. Stephen.
Thank you, Joe. And I'm going to segue off of Brandy's last comments. I attended, MMA has been doing their workshops over the last couple of weeks, and I attended one of the workshops. It was called Municipal Strategies for Online and In-Person Community Participation. And no, in-person engagement. And one of the presenters was, her title, she's from the town of Amherst. Her title is Community Participation Officer. They actually have a position dedicated to promoting and embracing community participation. And they use a lot of different tools. I'm not going to get into it. They use social media, they use all of the email blasts and all of those things, but there's other things that they also do to reach out to the public. One of the things that I thought we did, and I'd like to suggest that we look into it again, but this was part of Co-Urbanize. When we were gaining feedback about the downtown project, there was a mechanism through the Co-Urbanize platform for residents to come in and make notes and comments and so on. And that seemed to be, and Michael, I think we had a ton of commentary on that through that platform. And
You did.
I don't know if there's, Amherst has a similar platform to that. And I don't know, it must be a commercial program that you purchase, but I don't know. I think we need to do a little bit more homework, but just thinking about other ways, other vehicles that we could engage. Public forums are great. We always say public forum, and then we get 3 people coming to a public forum. Clearly not a very effective way of really getting engagement. So I think we really need to start looking at, as Brandy suggested, what some other communities are doing for some of these ways. So that's one thing.
I agree.
Second-
Just to add that the sustainability is the net zero plan is a great example of something to try to get a lot of it.
Could be the Valentine property is another example where that could be used. So 125 Front Street. Okay, so that's that report. So Michael, ARPA, you familiar, are you aware that there's a final rules that came out for ARPA?
Yeah, well, I think we talked about it at a couple of meetings ago, because it's a couple of meetings old, just how the guidelines are a little looser than what we had originally thought about.
Okay, I thought we did talk about it. I guess when I read the article, I didn't connect, but the fact that we have much more flexibility with using the monies than we thought we did. And so I'm not going to belabor that. So if we already talked about it. All right. Next item is community committee appointments. One of the takeaways that I thought was interesting from the racial equity report, it was a narrative about, it was a comment about the fact that people feel that they don't have access to serving on committees because the same olds get appointed to the committees over and over and over again. Now, I know I'm a broken record. We've talked about this. I've talked about it a number of times. It's, we've talked about it at retreats. I don't think we need to talk about this too much longer. I think we need to come up with some new policies for rotating people on committees. And, some of our committees, it's like Congress. People have served on them for 30 years. It doesn't make any sense not to start rotating people. And if we have to put term limits on committees that we appoint, then, I think we should, and we did discuss this, I believe, at a retreat. And I think we don't need to retreat anymore. We just need to decide what we want to do to improve the participation in committees and let the community know that there are opportunities to participate. And, we just can't be rubber stamping appointments over and over again. And then along with that, it's how we monitor committees. We've talked about this many times, and we've tried various ways to bring committees into the board to get reports and get updates and so on. So tonight we've got a property restrictions working group that we're going to advocate for reconstituting. So how are we going to monitor their progress? What's the plan? And that goes along with, every committee that we appoint. We do not monitor what they do. And, I don't have an answer. I'm just complaining tonight. So, but I think we need to start making some decisions with the committees that we appoint. That's that tune. My last comment is February is Black History Month. I know the public library is going to have some programming related to Black History Month. I'm not sure what the schools are doing, and I'm not sure what the organizations that we have in town are doing, whether it's Ashland is United or area or any of the groups that certainly have a good reason to do some kind of programming for Black History Month. Jen, I don't know, Ashland is United. Are they planning anything? Michael, is area planning anything that we're aware of? It's just to let the community know. I mean, we're talking about racial equity. We're talking about inclusion. And, again, this is Black History Month.
Yeah, so I know Ashland is United is not doing any events, but they are pushing out information. Hopefully they're hoping to sort of push new information at least weekly. And that's what they're doing for the full month.
Yeah, and I think that's really what Areas is focusing on as well. They've got a couple programs that they're pushing, like an organization program, but I'm not necessarily sure that those are Black History Month specific. Although I take that back. I believe they are doing one, which is very interesting. It's the extraordinary story of the Tuskegee Airmen. And if you remember, not too long ago, I believe it was in November, we ended up having a speaker.
It was a breakfast.
Yeah, for one of and we had as a speaker one of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Trying to think of the captain's name. He was there. Yeah.
And for those that don't know, the Tuskegee Airmen were an all-Black regiment that flew airplanes and fought in World War II, and it was the first all-Black group or Black pilots that were allowed in the service at the time. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'm just, again, just curious as to what how Black History Month is being celebrated, if it is. And, I would encourage residents to, certainly to be aware of it. I think there's a lot of opportunities to get educated about Black history. This is a great opportunity to do so. So that's my tune, Joe. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you. And I'm sure the schools will probably be doing something as well throughout the month. with respect to either reading a specific book about an individual with respect to Black history. I just want to shout out again to the DPW for the great job they did over the blizzard and the continued cleanup for this entire week. It wasn't just over the weekend. They were out here again today, pushing back the roadways, making them wider, taking down the large piles of snow so you could see from corner to corner, make it a little bit easier for travelers. So appreciate all the work that they're doing. It's well appreciated. So Brandy already talked about the inclusionary zoning meeting that we had with the Affordable Housing Trust, so I won't belabor that. But I just want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. We're not going to meet until afterwards, so I hope you all get roses and candies and all the good things that go along with it. And at this stage of the game, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, voice vote, please.
Greaves, aye.
Mitchell, I.
You're right.
Kinsman, I.
Magnani, aye, and it's just 10 o'clock. So have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Good night,
night,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.